In Chen Daoxuan's cognition, it was like an inexplicable existence that never explained but remained firm. Whether it's exactly what I guessed, it depends on tomorrow's situation, Chen Daoxian said silently. The next day, Chen Daoxian recited the Hongming Enlightenment Classic again. After a stick of incense, another stardust was added to the sea of consciousness space, and the number of stardust exceeded 10, reaching an unprecedented 11. Sure enough, seeing this scene, Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. Can continue to store comprehension, things proved to be very consistent with his guess. That is, the Hongming Enlightenment Classic has broken through to a new level. The threshold for epiphany has been raised. There are pros and cons to raising the threshold of epiphany. The downside is that, as a result, there will be fewer epiphanies in the future. In the past, it was a 10-day storage of comprehension and an epiphany. Now I don't know how long I have to store my comprehension to get an epiphany. But the advantage is definitely that the effect of the epiphany is stronger. Previously, it was only possible to store up to 10 stardust. Within a stick of incense, the comprehension is increased tenfold. Although the effect is strong enough, it is compared to Chen Daoxuan's increasingly terrifying Kendo realm. This epiphany effect is no longer as exaggerated as it was at the beginning. Although his Kendo level is still improving with the epiphany once every 10 days, the speed of improvement is definitely not as fast as when he first set foot on Kendo. When Chen Daoxian just practiced wind-chasing sword art, it was a small success with 1 epiphany and 3 epiphanies. After a few more epiphanies, you will directly reach the state of perfection. This kind of terrifying effect is estimated to scare people who don't know the inside information. But as his Kendo level continues to improve, the effect of epiphany is also waning. In fact, it is not that the epiphany effect has weakened, but his Kendo realm is advanced, and the difficulty of cultivation is getting more and more difficult. In fact, in the eyes of other swordsmen, the speed of his Kendo realm's progress was simply terrifying. The entire Wuxia, who can be like him when he is only in his 20s, the sword intent has reached the second tangible state. Others who succeed in building a foundation in their 20s will be hailed as geniuses. To be able to become a sword cultivator in his 20s is a genius among geniuses, a monster-like existence. In his 20s, the sword intent has reached a tangible state, and it is not clear whether there will be any newcomers, but he, Chen Daoxian, is absolutely unprecedented. Time passes day by day. Chen Daoxian pressed patience. In addition to polishing the real essence every day, Ji taught the Chen family's blessing immortal seedlings in the clan. The main course he took was Kendo class. Compared with Chen Xianhe, Chen Daoxuan's understanding of Kendo is not known by many levels. He explained the basics of Kendo to all the immortals, and he did not know how much more thorough it was than Chen Xianhe. Down these days, Chen Daoxian actually found a few good seedlings in Kendo in this batch of immortal seedlings. This is the gap between him and Chen Xianhe. Even though Chen Xianhe has cultivated the wind-chasing sword art to the realm, his understanding of wind-chasing sword art is based on a quick word. Not to mention his other insights into Kendo. And Chen Daoxian, whether it is his comprehension of wind-chasing sword art or covering rain sword art, even surpassed those who created these 2 sword art. With his current Kendo realm, wanting to create this level of sword art is simply a matter of randomness. Those first-order swordsmanships that he thought were incomparably esoteric in the past. Judging from today's eyes, it seems like a child's painting, which is laughable. Soon, 20 days have passed. In front of Lingtan and Lingfu, a stick of incense time, Chen Daoxian silently recited the Hongming Enlightenment Classic again. In the sea of consciousness space, 30 stardust exudes faint starlight, constantly revolving around the golden scriptures. This time, Chen Daoxian finally felt the familiar attraction between Xingchen again. See, the corner of Chen Daoxuan's mouth couldn't help but evoke a smile. He no longer controls the stardust, allowing them to smash together. Next second, a sense of shock as if the world had opened up completely drowned Chen Daoxuan's consciousness. If there are outsiders present, you will find 2 lines of tears falling from Chen Daoxuan's eyes. This is the shock and emotion after having a glimpse of the corner. There has never been a moment when Chen Daoxian felt that he was so close to Dao, as if he stretched out his hand and could grab each other. But soon, Chen Daoxuan's consciousness regained clarity. He knew that the feeling just now was just an illusion caused by a sudden increase in understanding. Just like when he first broke through the foundation building stage, he felt that he could pierce the sky with a single sword. Looking at the countless light clusters floating in the sea of consciousness, Chen Daoxian immediately chose to comprehend the Qinyuan Sword Classic. The Qinyuan Sword Sutra, which was still obscure in his eyes before, seems to be as easy as 1 + 1 at this moment. Less than a dozen breaths. He thoroughly understood all the contents of the Qinyuan Sword Sutra during the foundation period. Not only that, on this basis, Chen Daoxian discovered a cultivation method that was more suitable for him. In other words, in just a dozen or so breaths, he discovered a way to improve the Qinyuan Sword Sutra to be more suitable for him. To know. Even with his ability of 30 times his comprehension, he will soon be able to become a 4th order array mage. To become a 4th order array mage with a foundation building cultivation. This has never happened in the world of immortals. Look at the Hongming Enlightenment Classic, in the Sea of Consciousness space. Chen Daoxian secretly said, I don't know what kind of surprises you will give me in the future. Chapter 173. Chongping No. 1 Xiuxian Primary School. Inside the classroom. Standing on the podium, Chen Daoxian looked at the little cultivators of the blessing generation below, with a slight smile on his lips and said, You all know that the essence of wind-chasing sword art is in a quick word, so how to achieve this quick word? There are who knows, heard. The crowd looked at each other in dismay, and the entire classroom was silent. Teacher, I know. Well, tell me. Chen Daoxian looked at the child who was less than 1.2 meters tall. His name is Chen Fuxing, and he is a fairy seedling with the best kendo talent found by Chen Daoxian among this group of people of the blessed generation. Not only that, this Chen Fuxing also has upper spiritual roots, and is the object that the Chen family plans to focus on training. Seeing him raise his hand, Chen Daoxian's tone softened a bit. Chen Fuxing stood up nervously and said, I think the essence of wind-chasing sword art is not about being fast, but about melting the sword into the wind. Oh! Chen Daoxian's eyes lit up slightly. Tell me about it specifically. When our cultivators don't use the sword, the Imperial Envoy Feijian, they completely rely on infuriating qi to force the flying sword. But in this way, most of the power of the flying sword is damaged in the collision with the air. The principle of chasing the wind sword art is to minimize the collision between the flying sword and the air in the process of mastering the sword, to achieve the ultimate state, and even the sword can be melted into the wind, and the sword can be silent. The more Chen Fuxing spoke, the more confident he became, and the apprehension he had just stood up disappeared without a trace, and the whole person was full of confidence in his statement. Okay. Chen Daoxian nodded, unexpectedly. There are people in our class who have such a profound understanding of wind-chasing sword art. He paused. Then do you know how to melt the sword into the wind? Heard. Chen Fuxing suddenly showed a bitter face. Obviously. This question is a bit out of line. If you want to touch this step, you must at least cultivate the wind-chasing sword art to the realm of mastery. The group of children in front of them had just taken Tongmai pill to become a first-level qi refining cultivator. Because Chen Fuxing is the key training object of the Chen family, he enjoys core-level training resources. Coupled with his diligent practice, he has already broken through to the second level of qi refining last month. But this younger brother, in the entire second batch of Fuzi generation clansmen, can be counted on one's fingers. Not to mention that someone can cultivate the wind-chasing sword art to the realm of achievement in such a short period of time. To know. If you want to become a sword cultivator, kendo talent is important, but unswerving belief is also important. Not even inferior to kendo talent. Because even a person with excellent kendo talent will encounter setbacks and stagnate on the road to jianxiu. After a year of stagnation, some people may continue to persevere. 10 years, decades? Perhaps the cultivator of the same age has already entered a higher cultivation level, and you are still struggling in the foundation building stage. This pain and depression cannot be sustained without a firm will. Young family Tianjiao Yang Gongwan was only one step away from comprehending sword intent, and finally gave up. Even though she was for the family to a certain extent, she was moved by external things, and her belief was still not firm enough. Looking at Chen Fuxing's young but tall body, Chen Daoxian said solemnly, Since you have this confidence as the young patriarch of the Chun family, I will naturally do my best to help you. He paused. From today onwards, you will come to my house after school every day. Heard. The surprise on Chun Fushing's face disappeared in a flash. Like an adult, he cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, young patriarch." "Don't be too polite," Chun Daoxian said solemnly. "Since you are interested in swordsmanship from now on, you will focus all your energy on swordsmanship. As for other courses such as weapon refining and alchemy, you can skip it." This? Chun Fushing couldn't help a little hesitant. He knew that the first batch of the family's children of the blessing character had entered the Phaegian factory and the alchemy factory after studying for a year. If there are no accidents, they will enter the two factories after 1 year of study. And he gave up alchemy and tool refining, which meant that he would be completely out of production work, unlike other monks of the blessing generation. From a certain point of view, this is undoubtedly unfair to other people of the Fu family. He hesitated to see him. Chun Daoxian knew what he was thinking and said, "You can't even overcome this grudge in your heart. And you still want to comprehend the sword intent and become a sword cultivator?" Hearing this, Chun Fushing suddenly felt cold on his back, bowed and said, "Fushing is taught. Look at him like this." Chun Daoxian nodded with satisfaction. "Come with me?" "Yes, immediately." A flash of light passed by, and the two of them landed in the courtyard where Chun Daoxian usually practiced in a blink of an eye. Feeling the aura in the courtyard far beyond the outside world, Chun Fushing's little face immediately smiled. "Go back to God." An explosion sounded in his ear, immediately calling his attention back. Chun Fushing immediately lowered his head. "Where is your seat?" Chun Daoxian stretched out his hand. Chun Fushing followed Chun Daoxian's fingers and saw a futon made by Wen Yu, and immediately sat on it cross-legged. "See." Chun Daoxian nodded and sat on another futon not far away, opposite him. "The wind-chasing sword art I taught in class today has several more complicated, but faster ways to practice. Sit cross-legged." Chun Daoxian told Chun Fushing all kinds of his perceptions of wind-chasing sword art, and his perception of kendo. This time, in Chun Daoxian's consciousness space, the golden scripture entrenched in the center of the sea of consciousness exudes an inexplicable charm. Under the influence of this charm, Chun Fushing closed his eyes unconsciously. However, neither Chun Daoxian nor Chun Fushing himself noticed this strange change. After a stick of incense, Chun Daoxian found that Chun Fushing seemed to have fallen asleep with his eyes closed, and he was immediately dissatisfied, and his face suddenly turned ashen. "Fushing!" A loud shout rang in Chun Fushing's ears. "What?" Chun Fushing woke up suddenly and looked at Chun Daoxian with a surprised look, feeling a little overwhelmed. Damn it! He actually fell asleep while the young patriarch was preaching, and he slept unconsciously. He secretly complained this time, the young patriarch must have a very bad impression of him, and he will not even open a small stove to explain kendo for him in the future. Thinking of this, Chun Fushing couldn't help but feel depressed. But soon he found that his sea of consciousness seemed to have one more thing. Consciousness sinks. In a consciousness sea space with only a little light, a stardust floats quietly in the consciousness sea space, embellishing the light in the center of the consciousness sea even more mysteriously. What is this? Chun Fushing's face was full of horror. As a monk who had just entered the fairyland, he knew the importance of the sea of knowledge. Once there is a mistake in the sea of consciousness, the consequences are often more troublesome than if there is a problem with the sea of qi and dantian. Think of this. He didn't dare to hide it at all, and immediately told Chun Daoxian the problem of his knowledge of the sea space. "You mean just after you fell asleep, there was a floating stardust in the sea of consciousness space?" Chun Fushing did not notice that when Chun Daoxian said this, his tone trembled slightly. "Yes, young patriarch, it's in my consciousness sea space." Chun Fushing nodded. "Come here and let me check." Chun Daoxian beckoned to him. Chun Fushing walked over without any hesitation, and lowered his young head in front of Chun Daoxian. Chun Daoxian gently placed his palm on top of his head, and then closed his eyes. Soon, he invaded his divine consciousness into the other party's sea of consciousness space. Thanks to Chun Fushing's cooperation, the process went smoothly without any resistance. Next moment, Sure enough, he saw a stardust that was exactly the same as his Sea of Consciousness in Chun Fushing's Sea of Consciousness space. It's just that compared to his stardust, Chun Fushing's stardust is much bleaker. It should be that Chun Fushing's comprehension is still far from his. Therefore, the stored comprehension, the embodied stardust, will also dim a lot. However, a person's comprehension will continue to rise with the increase of insight and knowledge, and even the improvement of the cultivation base, and it is not static. There is no phenomenon that the cultivator's understanding does not change after the foundation is established, compared with before the foundation is established. In this regard, understanding and spiritual roots are completely different. How Lingjin was born, there is no special means in this life, and it will not change again. An understanding is constantly changing. For example, Chen Daoxian, the perception he has stored now, that is, the stardust in the sea of knowledge, is both bigger and brighter than when he first started. Chapter 175. For 1 month in a row, Chen Daoxian pulled different Chen family members and used various methods to finally arrive at the new function of Hongming Enlightenment Classic, after breaking through the second layer. Compared to the function of storing perception in the first layer, the Hongming Enlightenment Classic has a new ability to break through to the second level. Chen Daoxian temporarily downgraded it and called it preaching. And Chen Daoxian thought at first that the stardust that appeared in Chen Fushing's Sea of Consciousness was the difference between the Hongming Enlightenment scripture and the storage of each other's perception. Actually, the stardust accumulated in Chen Fushing's mind is the realization of all kinds of knowledge Chen Daoxian instilled into the other party's Sea of Consciousness through the preaching function. For example, Chen Daoxian is instilling Kendo-related experience and insights into Chen Fushing. The accumulation of 10 stardusts in Chen Fushing's Sea of Knowledge will form an epiphany in Kendo practice after they are merged into an explosion. If Chen Daoxian explained to Chen Daochu his experience and insights about the knowledge of artifact refining, the stardust that appeared in Chen Daochu's Sea of Knowledge accumulated 10 stars and merged into one, there would be an epiphany about artifact refining. But whatever. Since the source of this epiphany is from Chen Daoxian, the final effect of their epiphany will not exceed the level of Chen Daoxian. In fact, it is quite normal to think about it carefully. If there is no such restriction, everyone in the Chen family can have an epiphany like Chen Daoxian, which is simply a terrifying thing. The speed of development of the Chen family is actually very fast. Why Chen Daoxian still feels like he is dragging the Chen family to run? The reason is that his strength is growing faster than the Chen family's power expansion. He is now in the early stage of foundation building, but with his Kendo realm with tangible sword intent, his real strength is comparable to that of an ordinary cultivator in the early period of Zifu. Apart from him, the Chen family didn't even have a second foundation building cultivator. There is no need to elaborate on how big the gap is. In the future, with Chen Daoxuan's Hongming Enlightenment Classic breaking through to the second level, the ability to store understanding has skyrocketed, and his progress will be faster in the future. And so, the Chen family will become more of a burden to him. Even though Chen Daoxian was reluctant to give up his clan because of his feelings and commitment, it was an indisputable fact that the Chen family held him back. Why are the Chen family working so hard now? In addition to the honor of the family, there is also the reason why the cultivator of the Chen family does not want to become Chen Daoxuan's burden. This point, seeing Chen Daochu, Chen Daolian, and Chen Daochuan working so hard without a single complaint, Chen Daoxian didn't know how. As long as a dignified person, no one wants to be a burden to others, so is the Chen family cultivator. Including the new generation of monks from the Chen family. They can temporarily live under the wings of Chen Daoxian and the family, but they cannot live under the wing of the family forever. Although Chen Daoxian is the head of the Chen family, he is not the nanny of all the Chen family members. He couldn't be everyone's nanny either. If there is a day when all the Chen clan members become babies to be fed, Chen Daoxian will resolutely give up the family even if he is reluctant to give up. Such a family is not what Chen Daoxian, nor every member of the Chen family wants to see. But helpless. Compared with Chen Daoxian, even if the other cultivators of the Chen family tried their best, not only did they fail to keep up with Chen Daoxuan's pace, but they were pulled further and further by Chen Daoxian. Actually, on the first day Chen Daoxian obtained the Hongming Enlightenment Classic, he knew in his heart that the most suitable person for this golden finger is not to be a family cultivator, but to be an unrestrained loose cultivator. He can join a certain cultivation force, and he does not need to have too deep feelings for outsiders in that force. Once the force is useless to him, he will resolutely abandon it. If this is the case, Chan Daoxuan's current achievements may be much higher than now. At least, he will not rack his brains for the cultivation resources of his clansmen to think about how to use industrialized production to improve the productivity of magical instruments and medicinal herbs. In order to improve this productivity, he will not waste his precious epiphany opportunity to create all kinds of new instruments. If Chen Daoxian joins a certain practice force, he only needs to invest all the opportunities of epiphany into himself. For example, in Kendo, in the understanding of Kung Fu. As for cultivation resources, as long as he shows superior talent, or learns a method of earning spirit stones, whether it is alchemy or weapon refining, it is enough to guarantee his cultivation resources. And so, his strength is definitely stronger than now, and his troubles are definitely less than now. But he is Chan Daoxian, a cultivator of the Chun family whom Chan Xianhe has been teaching since he was rescued from the monster more than 10 years ago. After so many years, Chan Daoxuan's heart was warmed up bit by Chan Xianhe, even if it was made of stone. Whether it was out of Chan Xian's expectations or his own feelings, he could not abandon the family and fly away alone. But the family drag is an indisputable fact. Until today, Chan Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that with the preaching function of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, after breaking through the second layer, the cultivator of the Chan family would no longer be his burden, but his help. Chan Daoxuan's Lingfu courtyard. 3 cultivators of the Chan family stood. Among them, the leader is naturally Chan Daoxian himself, and the other 2 are Chan Daochu and Chan Dalian. At this moment, they all stared at Chan Fuxing, who was sitting cross-legged on the warm jade futon. There is a look of anticipation in his eyes. Soon, a stick of incense. The time has passed. Chan Fuxing slowly opened his eyes, and there was a burst of light in his eyes. Fuxing, how? Chen Daoxian took a deep breath and asked. Chen Fuxing showed a confident smile on his face, nodded and said, "Young patriarch, it's done." "Okay." Chen Daoxian was overjoyed, nodded and said, "Try it." "Yes, young patriarch." Chen Fuxing stood up and bowed to Chan Daoxian. Immediately cast his wind-chasing sword art, after his epiphany. Soon, under his control, the red shadow flying sword turned into a phantom, and what was even more exaggerated was that the chi-chi sound after the red shadow flying sword pierced the air actually disappeared completely. Initially melt the sword into the wind. This is a sign of the completion of the first-order wind-chasing sword art. It only took a mere month for Chan Fuxing to achieve it. The speed of kendo progress is no slower than the original Chan Daoxian. Chan Daochu looked at Chan Fuxing with a shocked expression, because in comparison, he had practiced the wind-chasing sword art for so many years, and so far he has not broken through to the realm of great achievement. Although there is a reason why he has been focusing on refining. But what I have to say is that he is a cultivator who is about to build a foundation, and his swordsmanship is actually behind a descendant of the second-level chi refining. It is really shameful for him to be an elder. However, he quickly adjusted his mood. Because of this period, through Chan Daoxuan's sermons, his craftsmanship level has improved by leaps and bounds, and so far he has broken through to the level of a second-order craftsman. This terrifying speed of progress is extremely rare among the refiners in the entire Wuxia. After all, he has not yet reached the foundation building stage, and he has already been able to refine the second-order magic weapon. This makes other refiners think. Thinking of this, he looked at Chan Daoxian, grinned and said, "Young patriarch, you are really the big treasure of my Chan family," heard the words. Chan Daoxian looked at him with a dark face, which made him shiver immediately. Seeing him like this, Chan Dalian covered her mouth and laughed softly. In the past month, through Chan Daoxuan's sermon, her level of alchemy has also improved rapidly, and she has almost touched the realm of a second-order alchemist. Remember, my Chun family members can achieve this speed of progress without relying on anything, but relying on their own talent. Understand? Chan Daoxian said quietly. Heard the words. The hearts of everyone froze. Immediately afterwards, they all thought about what this terrifying ability meant to a cultivation force. Let's not talk about alchemists and artifact refiners, the logistics personnel who are related to the power of cultivation. It is said that the Chun family can batch manufacture a perverted cultivator whose combat power far exceeds that of the same rank, which makes all the cultivation forces unable to calm down. How rare is sword repair? Looking at the millions of cultivators in the entire Guang'an prefecture, only one sword cultivator, Zhou Mubai, could tell. That is no longer a 1 in a million cultivator like Tianling and cultivator, but the entire mansion, and there is a Tianjiao cultivator like Zhou Mubai. In the entire Zhangzhou, there are not many swordsmen. It is true that other prefectures are not like Zhangzhou, which suffered from the rebellion of God and the Battle of Zenangwan, which resulted in the destruction of the talented monks in the prefecture. But the genius of Jiangxi's level is also the top genius in other states. Even in Qinyuan Jianzhong, once a cultivator has established a foundation, he can comprehend the meaning of the sword and become a sword cultivator, and he can instantly be ranked among the true lineages of the sect. It is conceivable how much gold is contained in Jianxiu, and such an existence. The Chun family might be able to mass production in the future. If this is known to other cultivation forces, the consequences are really hard to guess. Anyway, it must have a greater impact than the Chun family's industrialized alchemy and alchemy. Because of the industrialization of alchemy and alchemy, the only increase is the logistical background of a force. And this mass production sword repair is directly related to the strength of a practice force. Which is more important is self-evident. In the world of practice, affirming strength is the most important thing. After listening to Chan Daoxuan's words, everyone realized the seriousness of this problem, and immediately swore an oath to never reveal the slightest secret. After Chan Daochu made his vow, he looked at Chan Fuxing as if he were looking at a piece of peerless jade. Unexpectedly, among the cultivators of the Chan Jiafu generation, such a kendo genius can be produced. Aside, Chan Dalian echoed, "Yes, God bless you, my Chun family's junior cultivator is finally full of talents, and one generation is stronger than the other. Chun Fuxing is young after all." I couldn't say these heartfelt words as naturally as Chan Daochu and Chan Dalian, so they had to hold back their face flushed and said, "Fuxing is ashamed, I can't be praised by my uncle and aunt." Heard the words. Everyone looked at each other and all laughed. Chapter 176. In the courtyard, the three bowed their hands to Chan Daoxian and were about to leave. Chan Daoxian stopped Chan Daochu. "See." Chan Dalian left with Chan Fuxing first. "Watch the two leave." Chan Daochu scratched his head and couldn't help but said, "Young patriarch, you left me. Do you have any important tasks to give to me?" Talking. Showing an eager expression, Chan Daoxian smiled and said, "I really have an important task for you." After saying that, his face became serious. "I found a problem from the exchanged jade slips of Qinyuan Jianzhong." He paused. Whether it is in the auction house of Guang'an Prefecture or in the exchanged jade slips of Qinyuan Jianzhong, the inheritance of offensive instruments is very common, but the inheritance of defensive spirit armor is very rare. You know what that means? After speaking, he gave Chan Daochu a meaningful look. Chan Daochu didn't understand the meaning of Chan Daoxuan's words, and said dumbly, "I don't know." Chan Daoxian sighed and said, "What do you think is the difference in strength between after you put on the spirit armor and before you didn't wear it?" Heard. Chan Daochu frowned, thought about it carefully, and said, "The difference in strength is huge. It can even be said to be a world of difference." "That's right." Chan Daoxian looked at the scenery outside the courtyard, and said quietly, "Even if I were in the qi refining period, facing a group of qi refining monks wearing spirit armor, I'm afraid I would be defeated and run away. Even now, I am besieged by a group of late-stage foundation-building monks with second-order high-grade spirit armor, and there is a risk of being defeated." "How come?" Chan Daochu looked at Chan Daoxian in shock, and could hardly believe what he said. In his eyes, Chan Daoxian is a sword cultivator, and his strength is absolutely on the same level. Such a Tianjiao sword cultivator actually said that if a group of cultivators of the same rank were wearing spirit armor, they could pose a threat to him. This obviously had a big impact on Chan Daochu's three views. But immediately he thought that after he was in the first-rank high-grade life spirit armor, with his cultivation level of the 9th level of qi refining, which was close to the great perfection, he was able to withstand the attacks of ordinary monks in the early stage of foundation establishment. Immediately relieved, Compared with the offensive weapons of the flying sword type, the spiritual armor can indeed affect the balance of strength. Therefore, in the exchanged jade slips of Qianyuan Jianzong, there is no inheritance of high-level spirit armor. In fact, Chen Daoxian exchanged jade slips from Qianyuan Jianzong, and he could smell it. Qianyuan Jianzong's policy was to suppress the big family and support loose cultivators. At this point, it is estimated that all the big families in Wanxinghai can see it. This is also the reason why the major families under the rule of Qianyuan Jianzong did not dare to make mistakes at will. The core strategic technology such as high-level spirit armor refining and inheritance, once spread to the big family, will enhance the strength of the family in a very short period of time. A group of monks wearing spirit armor and a group of naked monks holding offensive magic weapons are not the same concept at all. Even if Qianyuan Jianzong is not afraid of this kind of power, the expansion of the power of the big family is too great, and it is always a trouble for it. This kind of trouble, Qianyuan Jianzong had to guard against it. Of course, although spirit armor is good, the price is also quite impressive. Generally, even the most elite children of large families are qualified to wear spirit armor. Just like the Zhou family and the Wu family, only the most elite family members have spirit armor. But even the Zhou and Wu families have the highest spiritual armor inheritance, only the second-ranked top grade. Does the Zhou family have no spiritual stone or lack of military exploits? Of course not. This is the reason why Qianyuan Jianzong intends to control the refining technology of spirit armor. Not only the spirit armor refining technology, but also the warlike instruments such as the Lingshu battleship, the Qianyuan sword sect is strictly controlling. The Zhou family's Lingshu battleship was rewarded by the previous suzerain after the Zhou family made great contributions to the Qianyuan Jianzong's unification of the Wanxinghai. But after that, there is no family in Wanxinghai that has obtained a refining method for a weapon of war similar to the Spirit Void battleship. Even the Zhou family has only accumulated less than 100 Spirit Void battleships in the past 1,000 years. You can see the preciousness of this weapon of war. The weapon of war may not have obvious effect when dealing with a single monk, but on the vast battlefield, it is like a godlike existence. For example, Izumo Frontline. Xianqing Dao League used a lot of puppet beast cannon fodder to consume one Xinghai cultivator. Facing this kind of cannon fodder, the weapon of war is the best weapon to clear the field. Even now in the war between Guang'an Mansion and Lotus Island Corpse Tide, the Sun Brothers did not choose to attack the 4 city gates on a large scale, except for the threat of Zhou Mubai, a perverted sword cultivator. The Zhou family's Spirit Void battleship is also the reason for their fear. This weapon of war, once displayed on a large-scale battlefield, will have a sweeping effect. In addition to the cultivator's quick escape and flexible movement, it is not easy to be locked by this kind of warfare weapon. Others, like the puppet beasts in the Hall of Thousand Machines, and the corpse tide that erupted in Guang'an Mansion, once assembled on a large scale, are simply the living targets of this weapon of war. Therefore, there will be no specific refining inheritance for this kind of war artifact. Of course, for specific instruments, Qianyuan Jianzong is still willing to exchange military exploits, but there are also restrictions. But for loose cultivators there are no restrictions. Loose cultivators are alone. Whether they are exchanging spirit armor or exchanging weapons of war, they generally only exchange one piece. There are no restrictions on this exchange. Qianyuan Jianzong's move restricted the power of big families such as the Zhou family and the Yi family. In the exchange inheritance of Qianyuan sword sect, things that can really increase the family heritage, especially the big family heritage, are generally not available. The inheritance of high-level spirit armor is impressively listed. The inheritance of large-scale war artifacts is also among them. This kind of thing, which is related to the background of a cultivation force, is much stricter than the exchange of exercises. Chen Daoxian rummaged through all the artifact refining inheritances. It also found a refining inheritance of the second-order spirit armor, and the required combat skills are extremely high. Anyway, the military exploits in the hands of the Chen family are simply not enough to exchange. In the courtyard, after Chen Daochu heard Chen Daoxuan's explanation, he immediately understood that the young patriarch's plan was far-reaching. He nodded. After my Chen family cultivators have built a large number of foundations, The current first-order spirit armor will naturally be unable to keep up with the cultivation. Although many foundation-building cultivators do not even have first-order spiritual armor, it does not prevent the Chun family foundation-building cultivators from disliking first-order spiritual armor. That's the truth. Chun Daoxian nodded. Now there are more and more cultivators in my Chun family. In the future, in addition to most people who will enter the factory and put into production work, the military department I plan for the Chun family will definitely start to form. He paused. In my vision, the Chun family cultivators and the military cultivators will be completely separated from the cultivators in charge of production in the future. The monks in the military have only one goal, and do everything possible to improve their own strength to protect the safety of the family. You also know that the components of a cultivator's strength, in addition to his own cultivation, spells, swordsmanship and other realms, are also affected by foreign objects such as instruments. And the impact is huge. Heard. Chun Daochu nodded. As an artifact refiner, he couldn't be more clear about this truth. The two monks with the same cultivation base and little difference in spells and other means, the magical weapon can even be said to be the only factor that affects the outcome of the battle between the two. Among them, Lingjia is the most influential factor. Of the two cultivators in the late stage of qi refining, if one's kendo realm has reached the perfection of the first-order sword art, the other is only at the normal Deshang level, but he has a first-order high-grade spirit armor. The outcome of the battle is self-evident. It must be a qi refining cultivator with a first-order high-grade spirit armor. Because the cultivators in the late stage of qi refining who have reached the perfection of the first-order sword art have no ability to even break the same cultivation level, but have the ability to defend the cultivator with spirit armor. How can there be any suspense in such a battle? Although the cultivator has reached a higher level, the situation is different. But there is no doubt that the increase in the strength of the cultivator by the spirit armor is too terrifying. It can be said to be the best of all types of instruments. Such inheritance, it is no wonder that Qinyuan Jianzong will deliberately limit it. If there are no restrictions with the financial resources of the various big families in Wanxinghai, all the elite cultivators in the family can wear high-level spirit armor in minutes. At that time, the strength of the big families will increase terribly. Moreover, compared with a pile of loose cultivators, it is easier for large families to form alliances, which is easy to threaten the rule of Qinyuan Jianzong. This point, as long as the high-level minds of Qinyuan Jianzong are a little sober, they will not be caught off guard. So, I want to set up a magic weapon research institute now, which is responsible for the research of various magic tools. The Institute of Magical Instruments? Chun Daochu was not surprised by the new term in the mouth of the young patriarch, but he was a little curious about the difference between the so-called Magic Weapon Research Institute and the Magic Weapon Factory. Hear Chun Daochu's question. Chun Daoxian explained, "Of course there are differences. You should know that I created two magical instruments, the melting furnace and the centrifugal wall breaker, right?" Chun Daochu nodded. "In the future, your Magical Instrument Research Institute will do this job full-time to research new types, especially the special magic instruments that my Qin family needs." What? Hearing this, Chun Daochu's mouth widened in surprise. He is only a second-order weapon refiner, but Chun Daoxian asked him to create a new type of magic weapon. He really wanted to say, "Young patriarch, you are too embarrassing for me." But seeing Chun Daoxuan's serious eyes, he couldn't say these words at all. Seeing his expression, Chun Daoxian, who had brought him up almost from a young age, didn't know what he was thinking. Immediately, he said in a bad mood, "You forgot, your current artifact refining talent is not the same as before? The artifact refining talent has improved so much, don't you have any confidence?" "How can I?" Before Chun Daochu finished speaking, he immediately thought of something, and his face suddenly became sullen. Immediately, he was excited and said incoherently, "This is feasible. This is feasible. If the number of talented wizards like me is a little more, this Magic Weapon Research Institute can completely come out." Seeing his brazen boasting like this, Chun Daoxian couldn't even look directly at him. "Okay, don't talk nonsense. You have always been leading the magic weapon class, and you have selected a group of steadfast and reliable monks with a certain talent for refining weapons. Now I will build the team of this Magical Instrument Research Institute for me." "All right." Chun Daochu nodded hurriedly. Chapter 177. The Sky Above the Immortal City of Guang'an Prefecture. A spirit void battleship rumbled across the sky and landed in the Zhou family station. Below, a group of Zhou Family Foundation establishment cultivators are waiting here. Friend Chun has worked hard all the way. A Zhou Family Foundation building cultivator, who was headed by him, cupped his hands towards Chan Daochuan, who flew down from the spirit void battleship, and said with a smile, "Senior Zhou is very polite." Chan Daochuan, who had a black short and fine beard at the corner of his mouth, cupped his hands towards the other side and smiled. Seeing the Zhou family cultivator looking at the spirit void battleship behind him from time to time, Chan Daochuan immediately introduced, "Thanks to the supply of raw materials from Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng and Lingtian Xiancheng, the number of medicinal pills and magical instruments refined by our Zhou family this month is very high. It has increased again, Senior Zhou, please take a look." Talking, Chan Daochuan directed the other party to check the goods delivered from the Lingshu battleship. Under the guidance of Chan Daochuan, the Zhou family cultivator checked the medicinal pills and magic tools that the Chun family supplied to the front line every month. Following the inspection, the Zhou Family Foundation establishment cultivator kept nodding his head. Yes, the amount of medicinal pills this month has increased a lot compared to the previous month. It seems that the number of alchemists in your Chun family has increased again. Saying that, the Zhou family cultivator showed a complicated look in his eyes. Senior is too famous. My Chun family also invested all the spiritual stones they earned into training new alchemists. Not only that, but also spent a lot of spiritual stones in the family's inventory. To train an alchemist and a refiner, the initial cost is too high. Chun Daochuan sighed. Yes. Hearing this, the Zhou family cultivator nodded in agreement. Immediately, he looked at Chan Daochuan with a smile and said, "But your Chun family is really courageous, and you dare to train alchemists and artifact alchemists at all costs. It seems that in the future Guang'anfu medicine market, your Chun family should be yours. Got a seat." Don't dare, don't dare. Chan Daochuan waved his hands again and again. Our Chun family is also tossing around in this place in Guang'an Mansion, which is comparable to your Zhou family's reputation in the entire Cangzhou medicine pill market. Ha 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 ha. This flattery obviously hit the other side's heart, making the Zhou family cultivator laugh out loud. Between the two talking, the monks under his hands have already counted all the goods. A cultivator in the early stage of foundation building stepped forward and reported to the Zhou family deacon headed by him. Reporting to the deacon, there are 3 types of first-order low-grade elixir brought by the Chun family this time. Among them, there are 143,000 Jedu pills, 100,000 Posha pills, and 94,500 Huichi pills, for a total of 337,500 pills. There are also 5,000 first-order low-grade flying swords and 2,400 first-order middle-grade flying swords. The above goods have a total value of 3,865,000 spirit stones. Hearing this report, the Zhou family deacon nodded, indicating that he knew. How about it, fellow Daoist Chun, still follow the previous payment method? Yes, half of it is settled by military merit. Chun Daochuan cupped his hands and laughed. Tisk, Zhou family deacon shook his head, his eyes full of envy this time. Although your Chun family is in the back, you have really gained a lot of military exploits. Fortunately, it can't compare to Senior Zhou Mubai. It is said that a few days ago, Senior Zhou Mubai led the monks in the East Defense Zone to break through a second-order vein transformed by the corpse group on Lotus Island, killing nearly 1 million zombies. Dao Chun is really well informed. There is this matter. Deacon Zhou said this, his face was full of uncontrollable joy. The successive victories in the East Defense Zone meant that the rear of Guang'an Prefecture became more and more stable. To know, the East Defense Zone is only a part of the entire Guang'an Prefecture coalition, not even half of it. In the rear of Guang'an Prefecture, 4 defense zones were also set up. Except for the weakest western defense area, the other defense areas are not weak. If every defense area is full of soldiers, at least 1 million monks can be assembled. Coupled with the Zifu cultivators who sit in each defense area, they are a very powerful reserve force. As for the sneak attack by the Lotus Island Corpse Group, it is even more impossible. At this moment they are being defeated by the coalition forces in the East Defense Zone, and they can't even protect themselves. How can they have the strength to split up and attack the rear of Guang'an Mansion? Besides, the rear of Guang'an Mansion is not a soft persimmon. By doing so, they will only die faster. With Sun Fu's shrewdness, he would definitely not make such a stupid decision. Sequoia Island, Guanhai Xiancheng. Above the city wall, Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe stood side by side. Uncle 13, how is it? Looking at the fourth order formation that he arranged with his own hands, Chen Daoxian said proudly. Not bad. Chen Xianhe couldn't help but nodded. If only I could arrange a formation like this from the spiritual veins of the Chen family, heard. Chen Daoxian frowned slightly, then shook his head and said, it is not difficult to arrange the fourth order formation, but the difficulty is how to bring out the power of this fourth order formation. Guanhai Xiancheng has a third order spiritual vein as its power source, and my Chen family's spiritual vein is only second order, and it is difficult to meet the requirements of arranging a fourth order array. Wait a few more months until my Chen family has accumulated 10 million spirit stones, and after promoting the spirit veins to the third order, it will not be too late to set up the fourth order mountain protection formation. Speaking of this, Chen Daoxian laughed. Once the fourth order mountain protection formation is arranged, my Chen family will have the foundation of a big family. You must know that the fourth order mountain protection formation can resist even a Jindan cultivator. If the person guarding the formation has the Zifu cultivation base, he can completely block the attack of a Jindan cultivator. Hear this. Chen Xianhe couldn't help feeling filled with emotion. Once upon a time, the Chen family didn't even have a single spiritual vein, and even spending 500 spirit stones to buy a Tongmai pill had to think twice. And now, he and Chen Daoxian are actually discussing the promotion of the third order spiritual veins in this open-minded discussion. Really all the time. By the way, in order to build this immortal city, it cost you nearly 60 million spirit stones. I heard that the military salaries in the Western Defense Zone are about to be dispersed. Do you need your family to help you make up for this part of the spirit stones? Chen Xianhe turned his head, looked at Chen Daoxian and asked. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian turned to look at the increasingly prosperous Guanhai Xiancheng, smiled slightly, shook his head and said, no need, Uncle 13, just watch it. Although I don't know what the Chen Daoxian is up to, but Chen Xianhe, who knew him well, knew that whenever Chen Daoxian showed such an expression, the problems encountered by the Chen family would be solved easily. I believe this time will be no exception. Guanhai Xiancheng, as the third large immortal city built by Guang'an Prefecture, is different from the square city built by other foundation building families. First, it was built on a third-order spiritual vein worth over 10 million spiritual stones. Secondly, the blocks, lingfu, shops, roads and other buildings in Xiancheng were all carefully designed by a Yang family construction master, who was responsible for building Lingrui City. No way. Although Chen Beiwang of the Chen family is a senior general, he is a mortal who has no experience in building immortal cities. Not to mention other issues. Just because Chen Beiwang didn't understand the shortcoming of the formation method, completely disqualified him from building the fairy city. After all, immortal cities are different from mortal cities. There are all kinds of monks living in it, so the requirements for the formation of its internal buildings are very high. For example, in an inn, it is necessary to arrange various formations that sound insulation and prevent the mutual interference of aura. Stores in Xiancheng should also arrange various alarm formations to prevent people from making trouble in the store. Merchants can even invite law enforcement members of the family in charge to preside over justice for them. Besides, like some kind of spiritual palace that supplies monks to practice, the forbidden air formation that makes monks forbid flying in the air. All need to build arrays. You must know that the arrangement of the formation is not empty-handed, and it can be done by drawing a few circles against the air. To arrange it, you need a lot of array materials. The fourth-order mountain protection formation arranged by Chen Daoxian is like this, and the various buildings in Guanhaixin City are still like this. The price of 1 or 2 copies of these array materials may not be high, but if you add it up, the price of a whole immortal city is a bit jaw-dropping. According to Chen Daoxian's plan, this fairy city is far from finished. 1/10 of the space reserved inside has just been used up. When the reserved space is fully built, it is estimated that the current population of monks in the West Defense Zone will be far from being filled. Although the Western Defense Area is also one of the 5 defense areas, except for those cultivators who were too close to Sequoia Island, except for the original clan and the dojo. The other monks were more willing to run to the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture and immortal city of Lingri. After all, in those places there are cultivators of Zifu. Although the cultivators of Guang'an Mansion knew that the sword was powerful in their eyes, the sword cultivators of the foundation building period were far less powerful than the cultivators of Z Mansion. In addition, the front line of the East Defense Zone is now victorious. The cloud over everyone's heads gradually dissipated. Naturally, there is no reason for everyone to run to the backward Guanhai Xiancheng. As a result, in addition to the 100,000 soldiers who were stationed in the army, Guanhai Xiancheng also had less than 300,000 scattered cultivators and family cultivators stationed here. Compared with the gathering of millions of monks in the Guang'an Prefecture sphere of influence, and the gathering of more than 1 million monks in Lingde Immortal City, there is a far cry. Even in the Chengguan Station in the Southern Defense Area, there are more scattered repairers gathered than those in the Western Defense Area. For this phenomenon, Chen Daoxian was not discouraged either. He knows that all treatment comes from strength. Neither the Chen family nor his Chen Daoxian have given the enemy such confidence. Naturally, they didn't dare to drag their families along and put all their bets on the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone. Return to the West Defense Station. Just entered the main hall of the headquarters. A cultivator in spirit armor walked in with strides like the wind. Seeing Chen Daoxian, the cultivator's eyes lit up, and he cupped his hands and said, "Master Commander, this month's military salary should be paid." Done. Quite nervously, he glanced at Chen Daoxian. Chen Daoxian wants to build a fairy city on Sequoia Island. Many monks in the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone were opposed to it. It's just that as Chen Daoxian's subordinates, they cannot disobey Chen Daoxian's orders. At the moment, the problem that the group of monks worried about at the beginning finally happened. The coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone have begun to fail to pay the soldiers of the coalition army. Chapter 178. Since the Western Defense Zone coalition forces garrison Sequoia Island, it's like running out of money. If it wasn't for Zhou Mingho, the commander of the Guang'an Prefecture's coalition forces, in order to win over Chen Daoxian, and the Chen family actually provided strong logistical support for the front line of the East Defense Zone. In other words, other people dared to embezzle the military expenditure of the Western Defense Zone so arbitrarily. It has long been captured by the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces for corruption and dereliction of duty. Since the garrison of Sequoia Island in the West Defense Zone, not only has a third-order spiritual vein been built, but also more than a dozen second-order spiritual veins have been built on a dozen nearby islands with Sequoia Island as the core, imitating the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture Xianmeng. The pulses are used for loose cultivators and other small families, and is responsible for the patrolling and stopping of the Lingshu battleship. The cost of constructing the spiritual veins alone is as high as more than 20 million spiritual stones. And the huge order for magical instruments from the Chen family cost millions of spirit stones. Afterwards, the construction of Guanhai Xiancheng cost a lot of the military expenditure of the Western Defense Zone, and nearly 50 million spirit stones were spent. Arguably, the Guanhai Xiancheng built with this money should be owned by the Western Defense Zone coalition army, but anyone with a discerning eye can see it. However, the Chen family assigned its taxation rights to the name of their own family. This is the blatant private use of military spending. Private use of military expenses is not enough. The point is that after spending like this, there is not much left of the original 80 million spirit stone military expenses. Don't talk about doing other things, even paying the soldiers' salaries is a little powerless. Inside the main hall of the headquarters of the West Defense District, Chen Daoxian looked at Lei Zhan, who was standing in front of him with a nervous face, and said with a smile, "Why are you so nervous? My Chen family is on Shuanghu Island, a few hundred miles away from Sequoia Island. Are you still worried that my Chen family can't escape?" He shook his head. "Don't worry, this month's military pay, I will pay it out truthfully." After finishing speaking, he waved towards Lei Zhan. When Lei Zhan heard the words, he glanced at his immediate boss with a slight hesitation, and then he cupped his hands and slowly exited the hall. Watching Lei Zhan leave the hall, Chen Daoxian murmured, after all, Daochuan should be back soon. Young patriarch. A spirit void battleship descended from the sky. Chan Daochu flew down from the spirit void battleship and immediately bowed his hands when he saw Chan Daoxian. Chan Daoxian looked at Chan Daochuan, who had grown into a grown-up appearance, and couldn't help feeling filled with emotion. At the age of 14, Chan Daochuan was taken by Chan Xianhe to the Feijian shop in Guang'an Prefecture to exercise, and then he took over the business of magic tools in Sangxiafeng City in Guang'an Prefecture. By now, Chan Daochuan is already 20 years old. It can be said that Chan Daoxian watched him grow up in front of him little by little. At this moment, seeing the beard growing at the corner of his mouth, he couldn't help feeling emotional. The cultivator of the Chan family's Daoist generation has finally grown up. Not only that, Chan Daochuan also has Zhongling roots, and under the constant cultivation of the Chan family over the years, he has finally reached the 9th level of qi refining. At this rate, it can be as fast as 2 or 3 years and as slow as 10 years. Chan Daochuan can successfully establish a foundation at the age of 30 at the latest, and become a foundation-building cultivator. Patting Chan Daochuan's shoulder heavily, Chan Daoxian said with emotion, "It's hard work." Chan Daochuan looked at Chan Daoxian and shook his head with a silent smile. "Come on, let's go in and talk." "Yes, young patriarch." Chan Daochuan cupped his hands and followed Chan Daoxian into the hall. The two sat in separate positions and Chan Daoxian personally brewed a pot of spiritual tea for him, and the two drank and chatted. About half an hour. Chan Daochuan finally understood why Chan Daoxian transferred him back to Guanhai City Xiancheng. Compared with the magic instrument market in Sangxiafeng City in Xiancheng, Guang'an Prefecture, what the Chan family did in Guanhai Xiancheng was really related to the foundation of the Chan family's future. But what about the Feijian shop in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture? Chan Daochuan frowned and looked at Chan Daoxian. Over the years, the Hongyin Feijian store in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture, has long been more than 2 stores. According to Chan Daochuan, the Chan family now has a total of 6 stores in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture. It completely covers the major blocks of the entire Sangxiafeng City. The types of flying swords in the Hongyin Feijian store have also changed a lot from the beginning. In the past, the Hongyin Feijian store almost only sold the Red Shadow Feijian, a first-order low-grade Feijian. But now, the Hongyin Feijia store not only sells first-order low-grade flying swords, but also the types of first-order low-grade flying swords are no longer limited to the Red Shadow flying sword. Moreover, there are also first-order mid-grade and even first-grade high-grade flying swords for sale. Of course, there are very few people who can afford a first-order high-grade flying sword in the qi refining period. In addition, even if they had 500 spirit stones in their pockets, they mostly wanted to rent a better cave or buy spirit pills. Instead of choosing to change the magic weapon from the first-order low-grade or the first-grade middle-grade to the first-grade high-grade. This is too extravagant for a loose cultivator in the qi refining period. Indulge for a moment. Chan Daoxian raised his head and said, "Now, who is in charge of the Feijian shop in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture, besides you?" "Senior Wei Sihai Wei." "It's him." Chan Daoxian nodded. He still remembered the stall owner he met when he first went to the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion. The last time he was in the Hongyin Feijian shop, he also met each other. Unexpectedly, he has now become the second in command of the Hongyin Feijian shop in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture. But it's normal to think about it. When Wei Sihai joined the Hongyin Feijian store, the Hongyin Feijian store opened its first branch not long ago, and there were only 2 people in the store, Chan Xianhe and Chan Daochuan. Now the Chan family has opened 6 branches in Guang'an Prefecture. Of course, the status has risen and it has become a veteran. Chan Daoxian nodded. "In your opinion, how does Wei Sihai behave?" Heard. Chan Daochuan's heart froze slightly, and he tasted the connotation of Chan Daochuan's words. Chan Daoxian wanted a Wei Sihai to take over the Chan family's business of instruments in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture. Senior Wei is calm and low-key, more credible, but Chan Daochuan expressed his concerns. To be frank, this kind of behavior of completely letting outsiders take over the family business is very rare in the entire Wan Xinghai. Because family monks generally cannot lack manpower, they may hire outsiders to help them. but they will never leave the entire business in a fairy city to outsiders. What if Wei Sihai ran away with the money? What if he tried to raise the price of flying swords and corrupt them? There will be many problems here. But compared to these small problems, Chen Daoxian saw further. Hear Chen Daochuan's concerns. He explained, the Hongyin Feijian store was indeed the mainstay of my Chen family's income, but now it is no longer. Whether it's the medicine business between us and the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces, or the magic weapon business, it far exceeds the turnover of the Hongyin Feijian store. Chen Daoxian paused. Besides, the most important foundation of my Chen family now is Guanhai Xianqing. Only when this Xianqing is managed well can my Chen family truly possess the heritage of a big family. Compared with doing business in someone else's fairy city, how can there be a lot to gain from operating a fairy city exclusively by yourself? As long as the Chen family makes the operation of Guanhai Xianqing prosperous, they don't say anything. The taxation of this Xianqing is enough to make the Chen family fat. Why is the Zhou family so rich? It is not only the various industries of the Zhou family, but more importantly, they owned a huge immortal city that was among the best in the entire Zhangzhou before that, the immortal city of Guang'an. The Guang'an Immortal Alliance built the Lingde Immortal City, and it was the Yang family and other Guang'an families who saw that the largest part of Guang'an's interests was monopolized by the Zhou family, and they were unwilling to form this alliance. Since Guang'an Xianmeng can do this, why can't his Chen family do it? If there is no corpse tide on Lotus Island, Chen Daoxian really dare not make this decision so quickly. But now that the corpse tide broke out on Lotus Island, in order to ensure the internal stability of Guang'an Mansion, the Zhou family agreed to compromise and sell some of their interests to the outside world. The so-called division of the 5 defense zones is not as good as the division of Guang'an Prefecture's interests. The West Defense Area of Guang'an Prefecture will be the sphere of influence of the Chen family in the future. His Chen family built a new immortal city on their own site, why not? Of course, building an immortal city is one thing, and whether it can be developed or not is another. The Lingde Immortal City started well, and that was also Yang Lingyuan's pioneering approach to surrounding this immortal city, opening up spiritual fields and planting spiritual veins for scattered cultivators to build. But soon this move was imitated by the Zhou family. Now it is imitated by Chen Daoxian. In this regard, his Chen family does not have any advantages at all, but because of latecomers they are behind others. Moreover, because of the construction of Guanhai Xianqing, the Chen family encountered the same predicament as the Guang'an Xianmeng, and lacked liquidity. That is, the problem of insufficient spiritual stones. You must know that he has not vigorously supported the scattered cultivators to open up spiritual fields and plant spiritual medicines on the more than 10 second-order spiritual veins opened up by his Chen family. If so, he needs to prepare a larger amount of spiritual stones for circulation. Just do it. Letting Daoist Wei to manage my Chen family's flying sword industry in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture, will be an attempt on the road of my Chen family's future development. My Chen family is still young in the Fu character generation, and there are not enough Taoist cultivators. Only by boldly using outsiders can it be in line with the rapid development of my Chen family. Chen Daoxian analyzed slowly. As for the problems of fleeing with money and corruption that you are worried about, as long as an incentive compensation system and a strict financial management system are established, this situation can be avoided. Of course, we always know people who are not aware of people and misunderstand, but this loss is completely within the acceptable range for my Chen family. Even our Chen family can promise that in the future, for these active monks who have served my Chen family for a certain number of years, my Chen family can help him open up a new immortal family as a way of my Chen family's vassal family. Hearing this, Chen Daochuan's eyes lit up. If you talk about what the biggest wish of a loose cultivator is, the first one must be attaining the Tao and becoming an immortal. Only, whether it's a sect family cultivator or a loose cultivator, they all know in their hearts that no one in this world has ascended to the upper world for hundreds of thousands of years. The saying of becoming an immortal has almost become a phantom legend. At least for loose cultivators, it is an untouchable dream. And helping them create a cultivating family, becoming the ancestor of the family, watching their descendants spread, this can be said to be the most tempting thing for a loose cultivator who has no hope of immortality. But unfortunately, most of the loose cultivators do not have this opportunity and capital. To create a family of cultivating immortals, even the weakest chi-refining family, a wealthy partner in a lawful land, are indispensable. How can an ordinary loose cultivator have so much savings? Loose cultivators who can open up a family of cultivators, without exception, are local tyrants in the cultivators. Now the big clan in Guang'an Prefecture like the Chun family is willing to help the loose cultivator to open up a cultivator family, and even willing to accept their family as a younger brother. This is a great good thing for the loose cultivator. It works. It works. Chun Daochuan's eyes lit up and he kept nodding. If it is conditional on helping the loose cultivator to open up the immortal family in the future, I believe that no loose cultivator can refuse this temptation, and will definitely do his best to serve my Chun family. Chapter 179. Finish talking about the magic weapon shop in Sangxiafeng City, Guang'an Prefecture. Chun Daoxian turned back to the topic again. He instructed, Daochuan, the currency that our Chun family is going to issue in Guanhai Xianqing has far-reaching significance, and we must not take a wrong step, otherwise for my Chun family it will be doomed. I heard Chun Daoxian take the matter so seriously. Chun Daochuan nodded solemnly and said, Young Patriarch, you can rest assured that I will take good care of the Chongping Central Bank you mentioned, and there will be no accidents. Despite Chun Daochuan's assurance, Chun Daoxian knew in his heart that Chun Daochuan knew nothing about the bank's operating mechanism, and he had to be on the sidelines at all times. In fact, Chun Daoxian was deeply touched when he used spirit stones back then, and it was really inconvenient to use spirit stones as currency. Fortunately, the loose cultivator still has a storage bag, and the loose cultivator is shy in his pocket. Usually, he does not have many spiritual stones in his body, but many family monks probably have this kind of painful experience. For example, the 80 million spirit stones allocated by the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces to the Western Defense Region Allied Forces use 10 spirit void battleships to transport them. 80 million spiritual stones, if piled on the ground, would be as high as a hill. There is no storage bag in the world that can hold so many spirit stones. In fact, from that time on, Chun Daoxian had the idea of replacing the spirit stone with a currency. It's just that the Chun family was weak at that time. The sphere of influence is limited to the land of Shuanghu Island, and there are only 11 cultivators in the clan. If you want to talk about the use of spirit stone coins to replace spirit stones for trading and circulation, let alone outsiders laughing, the cultivator of the Chun family probably wanted to laugh when he heard it. Chun Daoxian knows that the issuance of a currency is definitely not a simple matter. First, the currency has to be collateralized. In the past, the issuance of currency was initially based on gold as collateral, that is, the gold standard system. This system is divided into 3 stages or 3 forms: gold coin, gold bullion standard, and gold exchange standard. Even the US dollar, the world currency in the previous life, was the gold standard used for a long time. But later, with the continuous development of productive forces and materials, the gold standard monetary system has been unable to adapt to the rapid development of productive forces. The performance is that there are too many products being produced and too little gold to issue enough money. If a huge amount of excess currency is issued, in order to adapt to the development of productivity, but in this way it will inevitably face the risk of gold acceptance. That is, a bunch of people holding money and wanting to accept gold will find that there is no gold to accept. This is undoubtedly an extremely dangerous thing, which will cause a devastating blow to the credit of the currency. The development of society to this stage also means that the gold standard monetary system gradually declines. In modern society, the issuance of currency is no longer collateralized by some kind of physical object, but has become a collateral of nothingness, that is, national credit. Of course, if the Chun family uses the family credit as collateral to issue a currency, it is estimated that they will be spat on by colleagues in Guang'an. Chun Daoxian still has this point. Since credit cannot be used as the collateral for currency issuance, the only choice is to use the spirit stone itself, which everyone agrees with as the acceptance. Even so, in order for the loose cultivators and family cultivators in Guanhai Xianqing to accept such a currency, Chun Daoxian had to make adequate preparations. Except for currency acceptances, another difficulty is the currency itself. In the past, most countries issue paper currency. According to the different anti-counterfeiting measures of each country, The quality of the currency produced is also different. Some currencies have excellent anti-counterfeiting measures and are difficult to counterfeit. And some currencies just call a printing and dyeing factory can do better. The currency issued by the Chun family must have the characteristics of being difficult to counterfeit and easy to issue. This is not a simple matter. In other words, these two requirements are somewhat contradictory. Difficult to counterfeit means that the currency is difficult to counterfeit and easy to issue, which means that the production speed is fast. To solve this contradiction, we must have superb coinage technology. And this problem, it was the first task that Chun Daoxian handed over to the Institute of Magical Instruments, established by Chun Daochu. Twin Lakes Island. A ray of light crossed the sky and landed in the spiritual veins of Shuanghu Island. In front of you, a unique building appeared in front of Zakhen Daochuan. On the plaque of the building, the characters Chongping Dharma Instrument Research Institute are written. Chun Daochuan and the others are basically immune to the endless new names of the young patriarch. Or not immune. But the education Chen Daochu and Chen Daochuan received since they were children is the enlightenment education Chen Daoxian gave them. These new terms they have been exposed to since childhood. On the contrary, when I grew up and saw those completely different names in the outside world, I felt a little weird. This is especially true of the people of the Fu family, who have received this kind of education since childhood. To some extent, their vision is closer to that of Chun Daoxuan's children in previous lives. That's it. Chen Daoxian smiled at Chun Daochuan. Let's go. Young patriarch, please. Chun Daochuan made a pleased gesture. Chun Daoxian nodded, raised his legs and walked towards the interior of the Magical Instrument Research Institute, followed by Chun Daochuan. The exterior construction style of Chongping Dharma Instrument Research Institute is quite ancient. It is very similar in structure to the traditional Xianjia Palace in Wanxinghai, but the interior is completely different. It was divided into small laboratories by Chun Daochu. That's right, it's the kind of laboratory that Chun Daoxian built in Qitong Mountain back then. Only, the laboratory of the Chongping Institute of Magical Instruments is almost empty. Come to think of it, at the age of Chun Jiafa's cultivator and his level of refining, he still does not have the ability to run a laboratory by himself, even though their crafting talent was blessed by Chun Daoxuan's preaching. Nowadays, in addition to Chun Daoxian, Chun Daochu is the only one in the Chun family. With the blessing of Chun Daoxuan's preaching, he barely has the understanding and ability to create a new type of magic weapon. Good boy, well done. As soon as he walked into the laboratory, Chun Daoxian heard Chun Daochu's excited praise. What's the matter? Why are you so happy, young patriarch? Hearing this voice, Chun Daochu turned his head and saw Chun Daoxian and Chun Daochuan walking in one after the other. Daochuan, when did you come back? Seeing Chun Daochuan, Chun Daochu, who grew up with him since childhood, said excitedly. I was just transferred back to Guanhai Xianqing by the young patriarch today. Great. Hearing the two reminiscing about the past, Chun Daoxian interrupted with a smile. Okay, let's talk about the reminiscence later. How is the research on the task I gave you? It's been almost half a year. Successful. Hearing Chun Daoxian mentioning the task, Chun Daochu was all excited. Chapter 180. Young Patriarch, please take a look. Chun Daochu presented a treasure like a treasure, and took out a banknote that was very similar to his previous life. But look carefully. This paper currency is very different from the previous paper currency. The first is the difference in material. Chun Daoxian took the banknotes handed by Chun Daochu and flicked it gently with his hand, making a rushing sound. This is paper? Chun Daoxian looked at each other in surprise. Yes, but not quite. Chun Daochu paused. To be precise, this is a special talisman paper we developed. Of course, Chun Daoxian knew what a talisman was. The so-called talisman paper is to grind the rhizomes of Lingji into pulp, and finally dehydrate the pulp, and then go through a series of processes to make it into the appearance of paper. Compared with the paper made by mortals, the talisman paper also changed the raw material from trees to spiritual plants. In the rest of the process, there is little difference between the two. However, because of the change in raw materials, the talisman paper is extremely tough, far less fragile than ordinary paper. Chun Daoxian took the talisman paper handed over by Chun Daochu and then pressed lightly with his hand, but it did not tear it apart. "See here." Chun Daoxian couldn't help showing a smile, and said, "It's interesting. However, this alone is far from meeting my requirements." "Of course I don't know that." Chan Daochu smiled mysteriously, and then he brought a very strange magic weapon and said, "This is the key magic weapon to test this kind of paper money. This is..." He looked at the square magic tool that Chen Daochu handed over. At the bottom of the magic tool there was a glazed platform. Chen Daochu stretched out his hand and said, "Young patriarch, please borrow the paper money." Heard. Chen Daoxian handed over the banknotes in his hand. Chen Daochu put the banknotes on the stage made of lioli. Next second, a strange lotus-shaped pattern appeared on the banknote. This? Chen Daoxian looked at the scene in front of him and felt very miraculous. At this moment, he did not feel any fluctuations in spiritual energy and infuriating energy, but there was a lotus flower-shaped pattern on the banknote, and it was shimmering with light. It's like the fluorescence emitted by the banknotes in the previous life under the money detector. Chan Daochu immediately took the banknotes away from the square instrument, and immediately returned to its original appearance. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but be very curious and said, "How did you do it?" "Material and pattern." Chen Daochu stretched out 2 fingers, then pointed at a 7 or 8-year-old boy in the crowd, and said, "It's him who found this material." "Oh." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian looked at a rather silent 7 or 8-year-old child in the crowd, recalled it carefully and said, "Your name is Chen Fulai, right?" "Right?" Chen Fulai nodded. Chen Daoxian also taught the first batch of monks who entered the school. With the cultivator's memory, it is not surprising to recognize Chen Fulai. "How did you discover this material?" Chen Daoxian asked. "I discovered this new type of talisman paper by accident when I taught myself the inheritance of family talismans, but after I made this talisman paper I couldn't make it into a magic talisman at all, so I didn't care. Later, I was selected by Mr. Daochu to enter the Chongping Institute of Magical Instruments. We studied this new type of banknotes proposed by you, the patriarch, but we could not find suitable paper. So I came up with this new type of talisman paper that I stumbled upon. I wanted to try it out, and it turned out to be a real success." Chan Daochu on the side with emotion. "Speaking of which, we are also lucky. Although this kind of talisman paper cannot be used to make magic talismans, it can inscribe a very special pattern. After the array pattern is melted into the talisman paper, and then tested by the money detector we developed, it will emit a lotus-shaped fluorescence just like what you just saw, young patriarch." "You mean, this talisman paper has a pattern on it? Isn't it a magic weapon?" Chen Daoxian frowned. The banknotes he needed were easy to make, but had a high enough anti-counterfeiting threshold. Right now, this kind of anti-counterfeiting threshold is high enough, but it is not easy to make. Incorporating the array pattern means that this inconspicuous banknote is a magic weapon. Without a specific refining method, who can imitate it? Young patriarch, listen to me. Although this paper currency is a special magic weapon, because the pattern is simple, as long as the cultivator in the qi refining stage is proficient in mastering it, it can be engraved in an instant. Right? Yes, very simple. Hear the chorus of the crowd. Chen Daoxian said non-committally, "How simple is it?" Heard. Chen Daochu hurriedly handed over a jade slip. Chen Daoxian took the jade slip and sank his consciousness into it. Next second, with a strange expression on his face, he pulled out his divine sense from the inside of the jade slip. This array pattern is indeed simple enough, or if Chen Daochu didn't say that it was an array pattern, he even doubted that there was such a simple array in the world. But no matter how simple the formation pattern is, once the formation is integrated into the tool, no matter how high the cultivator is, it is impossible to see what the formation pattern looks like. Otherwise, wouldn't the family cultivator be able to reversely introduce the refining method of high-level spirit armor by purchasing high-level spirit armor? This is obviously impossible. At the speed of 12 people in our research institute, we can make this semi-finished banknote into a finished product. About 1 cup of tea can make 100 pieces. 1 cup of tea makes 100 pieces. If it is refined for 5 hours a day, that is 6,000 banknotes, and the denomination of 1 banknote is 100 spirit stone coins, which is 600,000 spirit stone coins. 1 month is 18 million spirit stone coins. If you increase the number of people, this speed will be even faster. Based on the current circulation demand of Guanhai Xiancheng, about 30 million spirit stone coins are needed, which is enough to maintain the normal operation of the entire Guanhai Xiancheng. Of course, the denomination of spirit stone coins cannot be only 100. In fact, Chen Daoxian divided the denominations of Lingshi coins into 13 types in total, according to his previous life experience. There are 13 points, 2 points, 5 points, 1 corner, 2 corners, 5 corners, 1 yuan, 2 yuan, 5 yuan, 10 yuan, 20 yuan, 50 yuan, and 100 yuan. Some people may wonder, 1 cent, that is 1% of the spirit stone coins, can you still buy things? Actually, the purchasing power of Lingshi is very strong. The reason why I felt that Lingshi couldn't help but spend it was because the things that Chen Daoxian usually bought were very precious treasures for monks. If you use spirit stones to buy bulk materials used by ordinary people, 1 spirit stone can buy a lot of things. Then, he only spent 1 spirit stone when he bought a young and beautiful slave girl from Izumo. If you use spiritual stones to buy food for ordinary people, you don't know how much you need to buy a single spiritual stone. Therefore, there is no problem in calculating the denomination of spirit stones with the minimum unit of points. Because even if it is a loose cultivator, there will be many servants behind them to serve them, and these ordinary people need to consume resources to eat and drink. These resources, if they are large transactions, are purchased with spirit stones. It is possible that small transactions between mortals will also be settled in currencies such as gold, silver, and copper, but large transactions between monks will not agree with these 3 metal currencies. In order to feed their tens of millions of people, the Zhou family has always relied on the food grown by slaves driven by the loose cultivators of Guang'an Prefecture. To buy these grains, the currency for settlement is Lingshi. It is impossible for the loose cultivators to grow food for the Zhou family for no reason. Metals like gold, silver, and bronze are of no use to monks. Therefore, if a large number of these 13 currencies are refined, the time required may be doubled. It's just that Chen Daoxian can't wait, he has to send more people. At the end of this month, he will start implementing his currency replacement plan. Anyone who knows economics knows it. The development of currency is also divided into stages. From a geographical point of view, currency can be divided into pilot, regional, and finally full popularization. From the perspective of the internationalization process, it can be divided into 4 stages. The first stage is the implementation of free convertibility of the balance of payments under the current account. In Chen Daoxian's previous life, the renminbi had just completed this stage. To put it simply, the spirit stone coins will be freely exchangeable in trade among the major forces in Guang'an Prefecture in the future. And this is the first step in the monetary process. If one day the spirit stone coins issued by Chen Daoxian will completely replace the spirit stones, and become the only currency in circulation in this world, that also means that he unified everything in the world of immortals. Whether it is economic, military, or cultural, it is possible to achieve this effect only after all have been unified. Now, what Chen Daoxian wants to do is to put money on a pilot basis in the simplest way for any sovereign government. That is, inside Guanhai Xiancheng, use spirit stone coins. Want to do this? Acceptance, currency security, force security, the major clan forces in the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture, and the cooperation of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone are all indispensable. Now it seems, Chen Daoxian has solved 2 problems: acceptance and currency guarantee. Next, he also wants to let the major families in Guang'an Prefecture cooperate with him to implement this plan. But before that, he had to completely subdue the coalition army in the Western Defense Zone and turn this coalition army into his private army to some extent. Actually, Chen Daoxian had planned to carry out this plan as early as the beginning of the establishment of the Western Defense Zone coalition army. Because as long as you are interested, you will find out. There are very few family cultivators among the senior members of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone. Chen Daoxian's direct subordinates had a total of 10,000 chiefs, among whom there were only 2 family cultivators, Zhou Mucheng of the Zhou family and Wei Li Dao of the Wei family. The rest of the people are all foundation-building cultivators from loose cultivators. The reason why so many scattered cultivators were chosen to be the military commanders of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone. It is Chun Daoxian who wants to completely subdue this army and turn it into a private army of his Chun family. Although Chun Daoxian is now the commander of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, he relies on his own strength and potential. It's not how powerful the Chun family really is. Others do not say. There are very few available people in the Chun family. Except for the 10 monks of the Taoist generation, the monks of the Blessing generation have not grown up, and it is impossible to let them go out on their own. As Chun Daoxian said, for the rapid development of the Chun family, it is inevitable to use outsiders on a large scale. But it is also important to enable outsiders. That is to enable loose cultivators, and never enable family cultivators, because for a family cultivator, the most important thing is always his own family. In this regard, Qianyuan Jianzong and his Chun family are surprisingly similar to some extent. Chapter 181. Sequoia Island. View Haixinqing. The main hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in the Western Defense Zone. A flash of light flew towards the hall. The person who came was a middle-aged cultivator in armor. The cultivator was burly, and with this spirit armor, he didn't look like a cultivator, but a natural soldier. Push the door in. Lei Zhan saw in the hall a Taoist man wearing a blue Taoist robe, a jade crown on his head, and his hands behind his back. This person is his immediate boss, Chun Daoxian. Lei Zhan recruited soldiers in 957 of the Qianyuan calendar and served as a soldier in Yunmengwen on the front line of the Izumo kingdom. After 5 years, he retired and returned. Chun Daoxian turned around, looked at Lei Zhan, who was standing towards him, and said with a smile, "General Lei, why did you stay on the front line of Izumo and choose to return to the backwater of Guang'an Prefecture?" Heard. Lei Zhan was silent. After a long time, he bowed his hands and said, "Your Majesty, Commander, most of the garrison in Yunmengwen are from Jingzhou. I am a Zhangzhou cultivator. Came back." Chun Daoxian could hear that this should be Lei Zhan's heartfelt words. Since the fall of Jinan Pass, Zhangzhou cultivators who went to serve on the front line could only go to Xianqing Xiongguan, where they were stationed in other states. And since the news of the Zhangzhou cultivator losing Zhenangguan became public, other states have despised the Zhangzhou cultivator. You can imagine the humiliation you receive when you become a soldier on someone else's territory. In addition, Lei Zhan's character is not very charming, and he is more likely to be excluded. Hear this. Chun Daoxian's mood was also a little heavy. The loss of Zhenangguan is the pain in the hearts of all the monks in Zhangzhou, and this pain has not healed with the passage of time. On the contrary, due to the subsequent series of losses to Zhangzhou cultivators' reputation and interests, it became more and more serious. He took a few steps forward, patted Lei Zhan on the shoulder, and said, "General Lei, rest assured, my Zhangzhou cultivator will definitely take back the fairy city of Zhenangguan." Lei Zhan seemed to remember some bad memories, red eyes, and nodded. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little solemn, Chun Daoxian took Lei Zhan's hand, and after separating from his guest of honor, he said, "General Lei, don't talk about these unhappy things. Counting the days, it has been nearly a year since you came to our Western Defense Zone coalition army?" Lei Zhan thought about it and said, 11 months and 7 days. General Lei has a good memory. Chun Daoxian smiled and said calmly, "Right now, the tide of corpses on Lianhua Island is low, and the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone will not always exist. I don't know what General Lei's plans will be in the future." Hear this. Lei Zhan opened his mouth, not knowing how to answer. Half an hour. He shook his head bitterly and said, "Maybe go back to my island and instruct mortals to farm. Apart from cultivating, I don't know any methods of alchemy and alchemy. It seems that there is no other way out than to cultivate food for the big clan in exchange for a little spiritual stone." This time Chun Daoxian was surprised. "Based on your cultivation, General Lei, isn't there any family in Guang'an that invited you to be a Kaching cultivator?" "Yes, of course there is." Lei Zhan nodded and then smiled bitterly, "But Kuching just said it nicely, but in fact he is just a lackey of the big family. Although I, Lei Zhan, are down and out, I am not enough to be a lackey of the big family." Heard. Chun Daoxian tapped the seat lightly, making a rattling sound. This Lei Zhan was simple and honest on the surface, but he was actually very shrewd. Before Chun Daoxian could say anything, Lei Jun blocked his next words. Lei Jun is not willing to be the lackey of the big family. How can he be willing to be the lackey of the Chun family? After all, although the Chun family was also recognized by the Guang'an family, but in terms of strength there was still a gap between them and the family. Even now that Chan Daoxian has successfully converted the Qinyuan sword classic, the power of the real yuan has soared by 70%, and he can vaguely touch the limit state real yuan mentioned in the Qinyuan sword classic. On strength, if the current Chen Daoxian encounters the original Zifu zombie again, he will no longer be on a par with it. Maybe there is no 10,000 corpse bloody array to repair its injuries, and Chan Daoxian will have the opportunity to kill it. In other words, now Chan Daoxian's strength is 3 points stronger than that of ordinary cultivators in the early period of Zifu. The strength of the Chun family is naturally rising, but it is still not as good as the Zhou family and the Yang family. Since Lei Jun can even refuse the solicitation of Zhou Yang's family, let alone the Chan family. Knowing the difficulty of recruiting, Chan Daoxian didn't care, and said with a smile, I take the liberty to ask, is General Lei Guigung this year? Hear this. Lei Jun seemed a little unhappy in his heart, but still clasped his fists and said, Lei is 87 years old this year. 87 years old. Building the 8th floor of the foundation. Are you a cultivator of Tianlingen? Chen Daoxian said seriously. Yes. Lei Jun nodded. But compared to your sword cultivators, Lei Jun shook his head in disappointment. What about the cultivators of Tianlingen? Although Tianlingen is one of a million cultivators, there are at least hundreds of thousands of cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture. Looking at the entire Zhangzhou, the Tianlingen cultivator has increased tenfold or even dozens of times. There are dozens of states in the entire Wangxinghai, although Tianlingen cultivator is considered a genius, but if it is Tianjiao, it is far from enough. Only sword cultivators like Zhou Mubai and Chan Daoxian can truly be called the arrogance among cultivators. Chan Daoxian finally knew why Lei Jun was so high-spirited that he didn't want to be a high-ranking guest. At the age of 87, he reached the 8th floor of the foundation building, and it would take less than 10 years at most to reach the 9th floor of the foundation building. At that time it is to polish the real essence and prepare to break through the Zifu. At Lei Jun's age, if he goes to the front line again and accumulates resources, I am afraid that he is really expected to be promoted to the Zifu period. After all, the lifespan of a foundation-building cultivator is as much as 200 years. Lei Jun polished his true yuan to a perfect state, and he was probably less than 110 years old. Completely in time to break through the Purple Mansion. The only pity is that Lei Jun is not a family cultivator, and all the training resources he needs must be earned by himself. If the children of the big family had this kind of talent, they would have been trained as core children long ago. Just like Zhou Mubai and Yang Gongwan. For this reason, Chen Daoxian no longer covered it up. He bowed his hands and said, if my Chen family is willing to offer all the resources of General Lei to break through the Zifu, I wonder if General Lei is willing to be my guest of the Chen family? You mean all the resources to break through to the Zifu period? Lei Jun was so anxious that he even forgot his honorary title. That's right. Chen Daoxian nodded. Not only that, in the future, my Chen family is also willing to help General Lei to open up a family of immortals and pass down the line of Taoism from generation to generation. Hear this. Lei Jun's breath suddenly became short, and he cupped his hands and said, Master Commander, no, Master Chen's words are true? What's wrong with this? If General Lei doesn't believe it, what will I swear? No need. Lei Jun waved his hands again and again. I, Lei Jun, can trust the promise of a sword repairer. Done. Lei Jun immediately stood up from his seat and stood upright in front of Chan Daoxian. Immediately, he pushed the golden mountain, down the jade pillar, and knelt down and said, Lei Mao is willing to drive the Chan family in the future, until he dies. Okay. Chan Daoxian was overjoyed. He stepped forward quickly, lifted Lei Jun with both hands and laughed loudly. General Lei, please get up quickly. Wait until the other person stands up. Chan Daoxian smiled and said, my Chen family can get the help of General Lei, which is like a tiger with wings. The Lord's words, the subordinates must not dare to take it. Lei Jun said modestly. Although he was arrogant, he did not dare to show any arrogance in front of such a young swordsman, because in terms of talent potential, Chen Daoxian can't stop him for 18 streets. This truth was deeply understood when he was defeated by Chen Daoxian with a sword at the Zhou family residence. Today, he is willing to become a guest of the Chen family and serve the Chen family as the master. In addition to the conditions that Chen Daoxian has given him that he cannot refuse, there is another important reason, that is, the worship of the strong. Humans are born to worship the strong, and the strong will only worship the stronger. Lei Zhen is a typical such person. After subduing Lei Zhen and watching the pair leave, Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. Outside the door, Chen Daochuan was waiting outside with a cultivator of the 9th level of qi refining. When he saw Lei Zhen pushing out the door, Chen Daochuan hurriedly smiled and cupped his hands. Lei Zhen knew that Chen Daochuan's status in the Chen family was not low, so he didn't dare to despise him because of his low cultivation level, and quickly returned the salute. Wait until Lei Zhen leaves. Chen Daochuan pushed the door and walked into the hall. Young patriarch. Chen Daochuan bowed his hands. Chen Daoxian raised his head. Where is the person you invited? Waiting outside the hall. Call. Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. In the past few days, I have finally captured 7 of the 8 scattered repairmen in the Western Defense Zone coalition to my Chen family. Hear this. Chen Daochuan suddenly said with a smile on his face. Congratulations to the young patriarch. Now there are only Zhou Mucheng of the Zhou family, Wei Li Dao of the Wei family, and the ignorant middle-stage foundation building casual cultivator. Talking about that ignorant loose cultivator, Chen Daoxuan's face was a little ugly. He, the commander of the coalition forces in the Western Defense District, the patriarch of the Chen family, and Corporal Li Xian, was rejected by him. Chen Daoxian was naturally a little unhappy in his heart. You must know that although other big clans will also recruit loose cultivators, they all send individuals out to recruit them. How could the dignified young patriarch like Chen Daoxian come to recruit them in person? The most important thing is that the other party actually refused. This made Chen Daoxian very uncomfortable. He thought that the conditions he gave were high enough. Since the other party was unwilling, Chen Daoxian would not let him continue to sit in the position of the commander of the Allied troops in the Western Defense Zone. Since it cannot be used by him, such a person will not be an eyesore if he is placed under his command. As the commander of the Western Defense District, Chen Daoxian had 10,000 reasons to dismiss him. The Allied Forces headquarters will not be unhappy with Chen Daoxian because of this trivial matter. Otherwise, Zhou Mingho's investment in him would have been a waste of money. Taking a deep breath, Chen Daoxian nodded and said, "Let him come in." "Yes, young patriarch." Chen Daochuan bowed his hands, and then the people waiting outside the hall of sound transmission let him in. Take a closer look. Chen Daoxian discovered that the 9th level qi refining cultivator in front of him was actually an old acquaintance. Chapter 182. The middle-aged fat cultivator in front of him is no one else. It was the 9th level qi refining cultivator, whom Chen Daoxian met on the way when he attended Yang Linyuan's Zifu banquet. Can't believe how many years have passed. The other party finally polished his infuriating energy to near perfection, and he was approaching the critical point of foundation building. Chen Daoxian still remembered that the fat monk's name seemed to be Zhang Zhixian, and his family was good at making magic talismans. Dao Yuzhang. Chen Daoxian stood up with a smile, bowed his hands and said, "I haven't seen you for many years, Dao Yuzhang, stay safe." Seeing this handsome face tall and straight in front of him, a young cultivator with a hint of coercion all over his body, Zhang Zhixian simply did not dare to combine him with the 7th level qi refining cultivator in his memory. How many years has it been? The other party actually succeeded in building the foundation. Not only that, but at this moment, he became the master of the heroic city under his feet. This made Zhang Zhixian adapt to it. Junior Zhang Zhixian, I have met Senior Chen. Zhang Zhixian didn't dare to act recklessly because he had a relationship with Chen Daoxian before, and quickly bowed. Fellow Daoist Zhang doesn't have to be like this. Since we are old friends, you and I should be friends of the same generation, Chen Daoxian said with a smile. This? Zhang Zhixian carefully looked at Chen Daoxuan's face, saw his sincere expression, and knew that he was not cheating, and a warm feeling surged in his heart. He quickly cupped his hands and said, I have seen fellow Daoist Chan. Haha, Chun Daoxian said with a smile, I didn't expect to meet an old friend here today. It seems that the relationship between you and me is really close. Heard. Zhang Zhixian couldn't help nodding. His chubby face grinned into a ball, and his eyes were almost squeezed out of sight. If I remember it well, isn't Zhang Daoyu's family near Lingbei Island? Why did you come to me to watch Haixian City? Chun Daoxian asked curiously. Zhang Zhixian smiled bitterly and said, Dou-chan doesn't know anything. Last time I attended the banquet of Yang Lao's Purple House, I was received by Yang Laozu after the Taoist friend. The Yang family wanted to recruit me to join the Guang'an Xianmeng, but I refused. He paused. I'm afraid that my Zhang family's actions will offend the Guang'an Immortal Alliance, and I will not be able to stand in the Guang'an Immortal Alliance in the future, so I migrated here with my clan. In just a few words, Zhang Zhixian fully demonstrated the helplessness of a small family in front of the big forces. Although Chun Daoxian also rejected the invitation of Guang'an Xianmeng, because Shuanghu Island is far from Lingbei Island, he is not afraid that Guang'an Xianmeng will give him Chen's shoes. Say it again. Chun Daoxian succeeded in building the foundation soon after, and his strength soared to the point where he was comparable to a cultivator of the Zifu today. Even Yang Linyuan wanted his Yang family Tianjiao to make amends to Chun Daoxian. How could he offend the newly rising Chun family? Zhang Zixian's family does not have such a talented person as Chun Daoxian. If they continue to stay in the boundary of Lingbei Island, even the Yang family will not take the initiative to attack a mere qi refining family. But with so many families in the Guang'an Xianmeng united, it's hard to say whether there are people who see him upset and want to take revenge. At that time, the Zhang family's situation will be difficult. Therefore, Zhang Zixian's behavior can only be said to be helpless. Hear the other person's explanation. Chun Daoxian nodded clearly, and then smiled. How is it? How is your Zhang family's magic charm business in Guanhai Xianqing now? When it comes to family business, Zhang Zixian's face finally shows a touch of joy. He smiled and said, now the war between the East Defense Zone and the Lianhu Island Corps Group is in full swing, and the demand for magic charms on the front line is quite large. My Zhang family's business is quite good. Heard. Chun Daoxian nodded. If he remembered correctly, now there is only the Zhang family who sells magic charms in the entire Guanhai Xianqing. The current Zhang family is quite similar to the Chun family who used to sell magic tools in Xiancheng, Guang'an Prefecture. It is also full of vigor, and the family has ushered in the opportunity for development. To some extent, the corpse chaos in Guang'an Mansion this time also reshuffled the whole pattern of Guang'an Mansion. The Zhao family of Guang'an Prefecture was completely destroyed. Because the Wu family was slaughtered and more than 100 foundation building cultivators were slaughtered, and it was close to the corpse tide, it would inevitably decline in the future. Instead, the rise of the Chun family. Although the Chun family's current cultivators are still young, there are not many cultivators of the Taoist generation. But only a discerning person can see that the rise of the Chun family is unstoppable. Just relying on Chan Daoxian, a genius swordsman in his 20s, means that the Chun family has the potential to become a Jindan family in the future. How could such a family not rise up? Of course, in addition to the rise of the emerging big family of the Chun family in Guang'an Prefecture, other small families have also ushered in opportunities for development one by one. Zhang Zixian's family is only one of them, but by no means the only one. From this point of view, war is indeed something that can break down hierarchies. Without this war, the Chun family would have risen, but the process was definitely not as fast as it is now. Without the approval of the Zhou family, as well as the 80 million spirit stones allocated to the Western Defense Area by the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces, how can the Chun family have the ability to build a fairy city on Sequoia Island? Let's wait at least another decade or a few decades. This war has accelerated the rise of the Chun family by at least 10 years. This is what Chan Xianhe told him. Crisis is both danger and opportunity. For the Chun family, the corpse chaos in Guang'an is an opportunity. For some reason, Chun Daoxian didn't even want the war on the front line to end, because the end of the war means that it will be difficult for the Chen family to reap such huge war dividends. Nowadays, with the gradual expansion of the production capacity of Chongping Pharmaceutical Factory, and Hongyin Feijian factory. Every month, the profit from selling the pills and instruments to the front line is as many as millions of spirit stones. Although more than 1 million spirit stones were exchanged for military exploits, there were also more than 1 million spirit stones in pure profits. Although not every month has such a profit of more than 1 million spirit stones. But in the past 10 months, nearly 10 million spiritual stones have been accumulated for the Chun family. In other words, the Chun family's spiritual stones for cultivating third-order spiritual veins are almost ready. The two chatted up. The relationship is quite familiar. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost over, Chan Daoxian said directly, "I am dissatisfied with Dao Yuzhang. I have invited you to come here this time. There is indeed something to discuss." Hearing this, Zhang Zhixian raised his eyebrows slightly, stood up and cupped his hands, with a hard smile on his face. "No. I don't know what Dao Yuchun said. What is it?" "See him like this." Chan Daoxian smiled and waved his hand, motioning for the other party to sit down. "Wait until the other person is seated again." Chan Daoxian continued. "I wonder if you feel that it is quite inconvenient to trade with spirit stones?" "Inconvenient?" Zhang Zhixian was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that the Zhang family's income had skyrocketed in the past few months, with a monthly income of more than 100,000 spirit stones. Coupled with the transportation of goods, it is indeed a bit inconvenient to store and transport. If the Zhang family's business scale is further expanded in the future, this inconvenience will definitely become more significant. It's really inconvenient to settle goods with spirit stones, but fortunately there are storage bags, so it's not too inconvenient. Zhang Zhixian didn't know the deep meaning of Chen Daoxuan's words, so he had to say so. Chen Daoxian is no nonsense. He took out a spirit stone coin, handed it over and said, "I plan to promote this new type of currency in Guang'an Prefecture, and I call it a spirit stone coin. The value of this spirit stone coin is 100 yuan, which is equivalent to 100 spirit stones." Zhang Zhixian took the Lingshi coin handed over by Chan Daoxian and remained silent. "Fellow Daoist Zhang, don't get me wrong, my Qin family is not a white wolf with empty gloves, and I want to use this paper money to get the spirit stones of each of your families. I just want it to circulate in Guanhai Xianqing instead of spirit stones. If you go out of the city to trade with other people, you can use the spirit stone coins to exchange for spirit stones at any time." How shrewd Zhang Zhixian was, he immediately sniffed out the smell. He hesitated and said, "But in this way, each family in Guanhai Xianqing has a collection of spiritual stones stored in your Chun family's hands." "Indeed so." Chen Daoxian nodded without denying. Hear this. Zhang Zhixian breathed a sigh of relief. For him, the problems that can be solved with spirit stones are not big problems. What he was most afraid of was that the Chun family also learned from the Guang'an Immortal Alliance and organized some kind of alliance. The Zhang family has small arms and calves, and he really can't participate in this kind of clan conflict game. Foreseeable. In the future, if there is a conflict between the Guang'an Immortal Alliance and the Zhou family, there is a high probability that nothing will happen to the Yang family and the Zhou family, but the small family of the Guang'an Immortal Alliance will definitely suffer a lot. These small families put themselves on their thighs because they thought they had joined the Guang'an Immortal Alliance, and they raised their eyebrows in Guang'an Mansion from then on. As everyone knows, this is the most stupid behavior. Others compete with big clans and your small clan joins together besides becoming cannon fodder. Is there a second end to it? At this point, Zhang Zhixian was extremely sober. As for the spirit stone coin launched by Chan Daoxian, in his opinion, he just wanted to make a rude slap on the various families in Guanhai Xianqing. Although this delicious taste is a little ugly, but Zhang Zhixian is not incomprehensible. After all, to build this immortal city, the Chun family will definitely spend a lot of money. Not to mention the others, it will cost more than 10 million spiritual stones to build a third-order spiritual vein. Not to mention that the Chun family also built more than a dozen second-order spiritual veins around Sequoia Island for the migrating loose cultivators and small family cultivators to cultivate spiritual fields and elixir. This is another huge expense. In addition, the construction of Immortal City is the most expensive. It is difficult for Zhang Zhixian to imagine how much the Chun family paid to build this fairy city, although it seems that this fairy city is far from complete. This just proves that the Chun family might have been hollowed out, and had to come up with this clumsy method to fight the autumn breeze against the major families in Guanhai Xianqing. Think of this. Zhang Zhixian immediately cupped his hands and said, "Since it is the decree of Guanhai Xiancheng, my Zhang family should abide by it." Seeing Zhang Zhixian being so knowledgeable, Chen Daoxian nodded with satisfaction. "Okay, fellow Daoist Zhang is really refreshing." "Hey!" Zhang Zhixian breathed a sigh of relief. The two smiled at each other, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. The two chatted again. Chen Daoxian stood up to send them off in person. This gesture made Zhang Zhixian terrified. Watching Zhang Zhixian leave, standing aside, Chen Daochuan, who had not spoken, murmured, "This is it. His Zhang family is willing to take out this spiritual stone?" Hearing this, Chen Daoxian smiled and said, "How about being willing? What about not being willing? This is the territory of my Chen family, and the words of my Chen family are the rules here. If they want to gain a foothold here, they can only abide by the rules of my Chen family. Daochuan, you have to adapt to your own identity." Chen Daochuan looked at the domineering Chen Daoxian and was speechless. Chapter 183. The next month, Chen Daoxian kept summoning the various families who came to Guanhai Xiancheng to establish a foothold every day, as well as the loose cultivators who chose to open a shop in Guanhai Xiancheng to promote spirit stone coins to them. Guanhai Xiancheng was newly built soon. Although it is not yet completed, many businesses have already settled in it. The entire Immortal City, although not as popular as Lingde Immortal City, is also becoming more and more prosperous. No way, monks need a lot of resources for cultivation, and no monk can produce any resources. This point is that the big family and even the sect forces cannot avoid it. Therefore, trade exchanges are very important for any cultivation force in this world. The stronger the cultivation force, the more prosperous its business activities tend to be. After all, only when the economy is prosperous will there be enough resources to give birth to more powerful monks. This is not much different from the previous life. Just as Chen Daoxian imagined, under his power, no family or loose cultivator who opened a shop dared to refuse to use the spirit stone coins. Of course, this means of pushing spirit stone coins forcibly. It will definitely leave the image of the Chen family as arrogant and domineering and greedy for money. But Chen Daoxian didn't care. How can outsiders see the benefits of a currency that is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people? Now they are repelling and even rely on Chen Daoxian to use his strength to oppress the other party, forcing them to use the spirit stone coins in Guanhai Xiancheng. But after they used it for a while, they felt the benefits of the spirit stone coins. It must be felt that banknotes have too many advantages over spirit stones. In Chen Daoxuan's view, using spiritual stones as currency is not even as good as gold and silver in ancient times. At least gold and silver as currency, its reserves are fixed and will not suddenly decrease for no reason. The spirit stone is different. In addition to the currency attribute, it also has an important function: cultivating the spirit veins. Whether it was the Guang'an Xiameng's construction of the spiritual veins, or the Zhou family's construction of the spiritual veins, a lot of spiritual stones were spent. After a large amount of spirit stones were consumed, the market in Guang'an Prefecture ushered in a shortage of spirit stones. This shortage of spiritual stones has caused a shortage of money in the entire Guang'an Prefecture. Many times, monks who lack spirit stones have to barter. But it goes without saying how inefficient bartering is. That is a backward economic phenomenon that only primitive societies have. Another important reason why Chen Daoxian insisted on promoting Lingshire coins is that the industrial production of Shuanghu Island will bring about a leap in productivity. Once these industrial products are put on the market, it will inevitably further aggravate the shortage of spirit stones. Now the industrial scale of the Chen family is small, and this phenomenon is not yet obvious. If the industrial scale of Shuanghu Island is expanded by 100 times, I am afraid that the spirit stones of the entire Guang'an Prefecture will be concentrated in the transaction and circulation of the Chen family and the outside world, which will not be enough. By then, the industrial development of Shuanghu Island will inevitably be greatly hindered. If the development of industry depends on trade, then currency is the medium of trade, but this medium is not strong enough and industrial development will inevitably be hindered. In the eyes of outsiders, Chen Daoxuan's move may be rash, but in fact it is to clear the obstacles in advance for the industrialization of Shuanghu Island. A month later, the main hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in the Western Defense Zone. 10,000 soldiers, together with Chen Daoxian, sat upright in the hall. A long time. Wei Li Dao of the Wei family stood up first and cupped his hands. Mr. Qi, the commander-in-chief, tomorrow will be the day to pay the soldiers of the coalition troops in the Western Defense Zone. But the spirit stones in our army seem to. Wei Li Dao felt the oppression of Chen Daoxian, but he didn't dare to say what he said. Chen Daoxian raised his eyelids slightly and said with a smile, "Since tomorrow is the day when the army is paid, I have to say a few words. Everyone knows that although there are 80 million spirit stones in the military expenditure of our Western Defense Zone, this military expenditure seems to be a lot, but after careful study it is not much. Purchase magic tools for soldiers, cultivate spiritual veins, build immortal cities, and distribute military salaries. As a result, military spending is already tight, but in this case there are still people who dare to embezzle military spending." Chen Daoxian's voice involuntarily increased a bit. "You said for this kind of phenomenon, can we tolerate this kind of phenomenon up to the commander down to the soldier in the Western Defense Zone?" Heard. The crowd watched their eyes and noses and their hearts, and remained silent. But as we all know, since Chen Daoxian said this, he must be attacked. Lei Jun suddenly stood up and said loudly, "All our sergeants in the Western Defense Area, in order to build the Immortal City, and to patrol the entire Western Defense Area, not only can't sleep at night, but even delay their own cultivation. That's it, there is still such a scum in our Western Defense Area. Who can bear it?" "Yes. General Lei said it well. I can't bear it, this wind must not rise." "Right." Seeing everyone's approval, Zhou Muqing didn't say a word. And Wei Li Dao beat his heart. "Xiahong, don't get out yet." Chen Daoxian's voice exploded in the long ears of a loose cultivator. Heard. The face of this middle-stage foundation-building cultivator named Xiahong became very ugly. He bit his head and stood up, cupped his hands and said, "Master Commander, I don't know what to do." "What's your order?" Chen Daoxian sneered. "Do you want me to scold you in public for your good deeds?" Hearing this, Xiahong's expression changed again. His hands trembled slightly, his eyes were full of resentment, and he said in a trembling voice, "I hope the commander will make it clear how to convict embezzlement of military expenses, according to the Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces military law." Hearing this, Zhou Muqing, who was in charge of the 10,000 soldiers and the military governor, stood up and said, "According to the laws of the coalition, those who embezzle military expenses in Mexico will be punished with different responsibilities according to the amount of military expenses in Mexico. Those who embezzle less than 100,000 spiritual stones will be dismissed from the army and punished with whipping and branding. Those who embezzle more than 100,000 spirit stones will be dismissed from the army and sentenced to the punishment of piercing nails. Those who embezzle more than 1 million spiritual stones shall be punished by death." Everyone listened. Chen Daoxian waved his hand and said to the outside of the hall, "Carry in." Next moment, a group of soldiers carrying 15 shoulder-height boxes slowly entered the hall. "Lord Commander, these are all spirit stones found in General Xia's Lingfu." Heard. Chen Daoxian nodded and said indifferently, "I see you all go down." "Yes, Lord Commander." Watching the soldiers retreat, Chen Daoxian walked to the first box, waved his hand gently, and the box suddenly opened. I saw a box full of spirit stones inside. "General Xia, what else do you have to say?" "Planned, it must be planted." When Xiahong saw this scene, his eyes were red, as if he was going to choose someone to devour. "It must be you. You saw that you couldn't recruit me, so you used this dirty method to frame me." Chen Daoxian sneered. "You are a mere cultivator in the middle stage of foundation building. Why would you let me, a sword cultivator, personally recruit you?" After he finished speaking, he looked at Zhou Muqing again and said, "What's the crime of the governor of Zhou, slandering Shangguan in the coalition army?" "Dismissal investigation." Zhou Muqing cherishes his words like gold. Chen Daoxian nodded, picked up a spirit stone in the box at will, and said, "Tiske this box of spirit stones. I am afraid there are more than 100,000 spirit stones. 15 boxes of spirit stones. General Xia has such a big appetite." Xiahong's face was ashen, and there was a hint of despair in his eyes. 15 boxes of spirit stones are more than 1 million spirit stones. Execute. Thinking of this guilt, Xiahong completely collapsed. It's you, it's you. It's you who framed me. Am not guilty, am not guilty. Xiahong's face flushed red, and he looked like a madman. Chen Daoxian, I have fought with you. Say it. Immediately he slapped the storage bag at his waist, and a flying sword went straight to Chen Daoxian's face. This sword light is as fast as lightning in the eyes of outsiders, but in the eyes of Chen Daoxian it is clumsy. I saw that he stretched out a finger, flicked forward lightly, and struck the tip of the flying sword. The next moment, Feijian let out a faint whimper and flew back quickly. Commander Zhou, what's the crime of attacking the commander? Capital offense. Zhou Muqing's words revealed a hint of murderous intent. When everyone saw this scene, they knew that Xiahong was dead. This fool. Wei Li Dao sighed secretly. Sword light incarnation. Chen Daoxian bullied his body with a sword finger and pointed at Xiahong's Dantian Qi Si, smashing his Dantian Qi Si to pieces. Puff! Xiahong spat out a mouthful of blood, and immediately fell down. The Dantian Qi Si was destroyed, and Xiahong was completely destroyed. Seeing Chen Daoxian's ruthless scene, everyone felt a chill in their hearts at this moment, even if they were the 7 scattered cultivators who swore allegiance to his Chen family. But at the same time I am also very happy in my heart. Fortunately, they agreed to Chen Daoxian's solicitation at the beginning, otherwise it would be them who would be abolished lying on the ground. Xiahong struggled and wanted to stand up, but he couldn't get up with trembling. Chen Daoxian walked to the remaining 14 boxes and opened them one by one. I saw the remaining 14 boxes, and each box contained only one spirit stone. Chen Daoxian lowered his head, looked at Xiahong, who couldn't get up, and sighed. General Xia, it's just embezzlement of hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones, and the crime is not worth death. Why do you want to die? Then he shook his head and said, These boys, a spiritual stone is still packed in a box. Isn't this scaring people? It's really. Hear this. Xiahong was so angry that his eyes went black and he was unconscious. He didn't even look at Xiahong, who was lying on the ground not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Chen Daoxian paced back to the first place, looked up at Wei Li and said, Where did you just say? Ben Commander, the subordinate just said, about the payment. Oh yes, pay for the army. Chen Daoxian clapped his hands suddenly. Look at my memory, don't mind me. Don't mind. Master Commander is busy with everything. It's normal to forget. Exactly. Zhou Muqing looked at the young figure sitting in the first place, and couldn't put him together with the young monks from other families who had to rely on themselves to intimidate other families in Sangxiafang City in Guang'an Prefecture a few years ago. The Chen family has really risen. At this moment, Zhou Muqing only had this thought in his mind. Chen Daoxian pressed lightly with his hand, and the hall returned to silence. I believe everyone has heard some rumors recently. Chen Daoxian paused. I'm going to use a new type of paper currency in Guanhai Xiancheng to replace the spirit stone for transaction purposes. Chapter 184. Said he took out 2 full boxes of spirit stone coins from the storage bag. Comparing these 2 boxes with the box that was just carried into the hall, it was almost the difference between a child and an adult. Open the box. Contained a stack of neatly stacked coins. These banknotes looked quite like the currency of the previous life, and Chen Daoxian couldn't help but feel familiar for a while. This world, finally with his arrival, began to change a little bit. Although these changes are limited to Guanhai Xiancheng in Guang'an Prefecture. But he believed that with the expansion of his forces, this change would gradually cover the entire Guang'an Prefecture, and even the entire Cangzhou. I'm sure some of you have seen this note. Chen Daoxian took out 900 yuan bills and distributed them to the 9 senior officers present. Though Lei Zhen heard that Guanhai Xiancheng would use a brand new currency in the future, but it was the first time he saw it in detail. For a while. Can't help but be curious. He carefully looked at the banknote in his hand, and found that the back of it was a thumbnail of the entire Guang'an Prefecture, and the front depicted was the overall picture of Guanhai Xiancheng. Looks majestic and has a very visual impact. In addition, the number 100 is written on the middle left of the banknote. Come to think of it, This is the 100 denomination spirit stone coin in the mouth of the Lord. Seeing the crowd do not speak, Chen Daoxian continued, my idea is to let the soldiers receive this new currency as military pay. This time, everyone whispered. Zhou Mucheng stood up and frowned. Master Commander, if this happens, will it cause the soldiers below to mutiny? Wei Li Dao also nodded and said, yes, Lord Commander, after all, everyone only recognizes spirit stones in their hearts. A soldier in the late stage of qi refining is paid 500 spirit stones for a year. A soldier in the middle stage of qi refining is 300 spirit stones, and a soldier in the early stage of qi refining is 100 spirit stones. But now, soldiers in the late stage of qi refining can only take 5 banknotes, and soldiers in the early stage of qi refining can only take 1. This. Wei Li Dao was speechless. Although the strength of a single qi refining stage soldier is low, but the entire Western Defense Zone is full of 100,000 qi refining period soldiers, plus 1,000 base building officers. Once the trouble arises, even if Chen Daoxuan's strength is comparable to that of a cultivator in Zifu, he may not be able to. Repressed live. Chen Daoxian waved his hand and said, tell the soldiers below that there are too many spirit stones and it will be troublesome to issue. You can use the banknotes in your hand to go to the Chongping Central Bank, the largest in the central block of Guanhai Xiancheng, and put the banknotes converted to spirit stones. Of course, if you don't want to exchange, you can directly use the spirit stone coins in your hand to buy goods in any store in Guang'an Prefecture. This. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Wei Li Dao was quite puzzled. Why do you need to do this, Lord Commander? Just tell the soldiers below that. Chen Daoxian waved his hand. In addition to the Commander Chen Daoxian, 7 senior members of the coalition forces in the entire Western Defense District have been recruited by Chen Daoxian to become Chan Jiakaching. There were 3 people left. Xiao Hong was abolished, and although Zhou Mucheng had the post of warden, he had the most complicated relationship with Chen Daoxian, and it was impossible for him to stand up against him. As for Wei Li Dao, he looked like he was trembling when he spoke, is obviously afraid of Chen Daoxian to the core. Just started. Everyone also thinks that Chen Daoxian, the commander, is easy to talk. Everyone has been with him for nearly a year, but he has not seen 3 fires when he takes office as a new official. I didn't expect Chen Daoxuan's fire to burn so late and so fiercely, that in one face-to-face, a 10,000 commander of the coalition army was abolished. Regardless of whether Xiao Hong was corrupt or not, someone else framed it. Said that he attacked Chen Daoxian in public, which was an obvious thing for all to see. Just based on this behavior, it is a capital offense wherever it is said. This is why Wei Li Dao said he was stupid. If he doesn't take action against Chen Daoxian in public, there is still the possibility of refuting the matter of embezzling the spirit stone. Whether it is the oath of the Great Road or the questioning of the heart, he can clear his grievances. Even if the grievances cannot be completely remedied, the big deal is dismissal from the military, but the crime will definitely not lead to death. But he was so anxious that he attacked Shangguan and put the biggest handle in the hands of Chen Daoxian. At this time, no matter who comes to condemnation, he will not escape death. This is also the reason why Wei Li Dao is afraid of Chen Daoxian. In his eyes, although Chen Daoxian is young, he is cruel. What's even more terrifying is that this person is still tyrannical. Chen Daoxian has everything in his means and strength. How could he dare to contradict Chen Daoxian again? The question was raised just now. And I was also worried that Chen Daoxuan's forcible push of spirit stone coins in the army might cause more trouble. At that time, Chen Daoxian as the commander may not be in trouble. But they, the tens of thousands of soldiers who issued specific orders, might have to throw 1 or 2 out to stabilize the morale of the army. And he, Wei Li Dao, is the one who is most likely to be thrown out to quell the anger of the soldiers. Because of his personal relationship with Chen Daoxian, he is inferior to Zhou Mucheng. In terms of the speed of surrender, he is not as good as Lei Zhan and other lore cultivators. The candidate to take the blame can only be him. But now, Chen Daoxian has explained that he can go to Chongping Central Bank to exchange spirit stones with spirit stone coins. Wei Lidio's hanging heart also let go. This move is nothing more than changing the location of the military salaries of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone to the Chongping Central Bank in Guanhai Xiancheng. is a little more troublesome for the soldiers. But for this trivial matter, how could the soldiers in the Qi refining period dare to look for the Shangguan in the foundation building period to show their teeth? The next day, in the barracks of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, a group of soldiers lined up facing the pay distribution office. Overlooked from above, in front of the 6 military pay distribution points, 6 long queues lined up. What are you doing? Aren't you giving out spirit stones? How can you give me a piece of paper? After a hot-tempered soldier got 5 spirit stone coins of 100 denominations in his hand, he burst out immediately. What are you yelling? Don't you have eyes? The person in front of him who was in charge of distributing the military salaries was a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building. At this moment, the momentum of the foundation building stage was pressing on the soldier in the later stage of Qi refining, and he almost didn't push the opponent down. The troublesome soldier immediately calmed down, bowed his hands towards the officer who issued the military salary, and said, "Sorry, forgive me, this subordinate didn't mean it, it was just a moment of indignation." Seeing that the soldier's mood had stabilized, the base building cultivator who paid the military salaries nodded slightly, pointed to the bulletin not far away, and said, "Learn to read and see for yourself," finished. Ignored the soldier at the late stage of Qi refining, and began to pay the soldiers behind him. Niezhong is a late-stage Qi refining loose cultivator in Guang'an Prefecture. At the very beginning, he was a spiritual planter in the Zhou family's many spiritual veins. In other words, is also the tenant of the Zhou family, but he is the tenant who planted spiritual fields for the Zhou family. Speaking of which, the spiritual stones that Niezhong earns throughout the year are not necessarily as much as those of the loose cultivators who drive mortals to farm. After that, the Yang family led the formation of the Guang'an Immortal League, and built a large number of spiritual veins on the islands in the sea area of Jinwu Island, and invited scattered cultivators from the outside world to open up spiritual fields on these islands and plant spiritual medicines. This made Niezhong, who had been under pressure from the Zhou family for a long time, excited. Hurriedly packed up and rushed to the realm of Guang'an Xianmeng immediately. Pity. A year or two have passed since the good days, when the tide of corpses broke out on Lotus Island. The destruction of the Zhao family in Guang'an Prefecture has made all the loose cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture feel very concerned. He, a cultivator in the late stage of Qi refinement in Niezhong district, is naturally extremely afraid. During that time, even when he practiced at night, he would be suspicious, for fear that the island he was on would be invaded by evil things like the Zhao family. Fortunately, the Zhou family took the lead and formed the Guang'an Prefecture Coalition Army, delineating 5 defense areas to protect the stability of the entire Guang'an Prefecture. Now those restless cultivators finally have the backbone. It also includes Niezhong. Niezhong joined the Guang'an Prefecture Coalition Army right away. In his opinion, it was undoubtedly the safest among the Guang'an Prefecture Coalition forces, because there were cultivators from Zifu in the Coalition Army. These small shrimps during the Qi refining period are naturally full of security. The only pity is that he was not assigned to the Central Defense Zone. Because the Central Defense Zone is where the Zhou family is located. With the strength of the Zhou family, it is undoubtedly the safest place in the entire Guang'an Prefecture. However, it is better to be assigned to the Western Defense Zone. Although the Western Defense Zone is weak, it is not without advantages. That is, the West Defense Area is the farthest from the East Defense Area, and is the least likely to be attacked by the corpse tide on Lotus Island. In addition, the Chun family in the West Defense Zone also cultivated spiritual veins on the islands near Sequoia Island for the scattered cultivators to open up spiritual fields and plant spiritual medicines. This time, Niezhong's mind completely settled down. He has already made plans for the future. He will first serve in the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone. When the service is over, he should have accumulated a considerable amount of spiritual stones in his hands. By the time he went to the spiritual veins around Sequoia Island to rent land to cultivate spiritual fields. Anyway, with his spiritual planting skills, it was a piece of cake for him to open up spiritual fields. As far as he knows, the spiritual veins cultivated by the Chan family around Sequoia Island are not only of the second rank, and the cost of renting land is also much lower than that of Guang'an Xianmeng and Zhou family. That's how it goes. In the future, he will not only be able to open up spiritual fields, but even have enough spiritual stones to grow spiritual medicines with higher economic value. Just when he was full of longing for the outside world and was about to receive the first military pay in his life, he found that he only received 5 banknotes. What banknotes? These are 5 talismans. Although he didn't know what material these 5 talisman papers were made of, Niezhong, who had been dealing with Lingji all day, could still keenly smell the scent of Lingji on the talisman papers. With 5 talismans, he wanted to covet his military pay for a year of hard patrolling. At this moment, General Niezhong's anger and humiliation that he had been oppressed by the big family for so many years all erupted. But before he could be stubborn for a few seconds, under the pressure of the foundation-building cultivator's momentum, he was instantly cowardly again. Sanson followed the instructions of the senior official who established the foundation. Looking at the explanation on the list on the side, Niezhong understood the purpose of the paper money in his hand. Can I exchange spirit stones at Chongping Central Bank in Guanhai Xianqing? Can I spend it directly in shops in Guanhai Xianqing? Is it true? Niezhong muttered. Hurry up if you're late. The spirit stones of the Chongping Central Bank will all be exchanged. Yes, these big figures came up with this kind of paper money. It must be a new trick that the spirit stones are not enough to pay the army. Quick! Let's hurry over there. Chapter 185. Hear this. Niezhong immediately gave his head and did not dare to delay. Guanhai Immortal City is different from Lingri Immortal City and Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City. Guanhai Xianqing does not have a city entrance tax. As long as the Wan Xinghai cultivator enters the Guanhai Xianqing, he does not need to pay taxes. Compared with the city entry tax, Chen Daoxian valued the profits and taxes brought by trade. The actual area of Guanhai Xianqing is very large, even more than Guang'an Palace Xianqing, but most of it is still empty and has not been completed. The actual completed area can only account for about 1/10 of the entire Guanhai Xianqing. Even so, more than 200,000 monks gathered in this small fairy city, which also made the whole fairy city lively enough. Especially today is the day of military pay. A large number of soldiers took spirit stone coins and went to Chongping Central Bank in the central block of Guanhai Xianqing to exchange spirit stones. Chongping Central Bank has a total of 16 working windows, but tens of thousands of people came to exchange the spirit stones, and the long queues lined up the whole street to become waterlogged. Inside the Chongping Central Bank, accompanied by Lei Zhan, Chen Daochuan watched the soldiers who came to exchange spirit stones, feeling a little uneasy in his heart. General Lei, do you think these soldiers can accept the spirit stone coins issued by my Guanhai Xianqing? Lei Zhan thought for a while, then shook his head and said, I don't know about the last general. The young patriarch said that the value of currency depends on the commodity. As long as the spirit stone coins we issue can actually buy medicines such as medicine pills, magic weapons, and spirit charms, it will have value, right? Hearing this, Lei Zhan hesitated and said, like, the military exploits of the Qianyuan sword sect? It's a very vivid metaphor, but it is still different from the military exploits of Qianyuan Jianzong. Chen Daochuan has been trained by Chen Daoxian for nearly a month, and he has almost the deepest understanding of the nature of currency. After Chen Daoxuan's narration, he deeply understood that the industrial development of Shuanghu Island is inseparable from the support of a currency with sufficient circulation. Although the spirit stone is widely circulated, its quantity is not enough. At least in Guang'an it's not enough. In the crowd, Niezhong was in a long line, and it was not easy to wait for him. I saw him looking at the staff in the window and said loudly, "Exchange 500 spirit stones for me." As he said that, he handed over $500 spirit stone coins. Are you sure you want to exchange 500 spirit stone coins for 500 spirit stones? Sure, please hurry up, Niezhong urged. Through the window, he could see the spiritual stones piled up in the mountains, if it weren't for the faint coercion of the foundation-building monks exuding in the entire hall. Niezhong really had a desperate idea. Suppressing the thought of courting death in his heart, Niezhongxi smiled and was about to take the 500 spirit stones. Side window. A panting fat cultivator took out a pile of spirit stones from his storage bag and kept stacking them at the counter. Niezhong glanced at it and saw that there were at least hundreds of spirit stones. Trouble, help me exchange all these spirit stones for spirit stone coins, hurry up. The fat cultivator looked irritated. The shopkeepers in these shops are all sick. They don't accept good spirit stones, they all accept spirit stone coins. Soon, from time to time, someone in the team took out the spirit stone from the storage bag and exchanged it for spirit stone coins. Hello. Do you still want to exchange spirit stones? Inside the window, the staff saw that Niezhong did not speak and asked again and again. Wait a minute. Niezhong hesitated. After that, he took the 500 spirit stone coins back from the bank staff. Can this paper money really be spent? Walking out of the Chongping Central Bank, Niezhong was full of doubts. Walk all the way to a shop selling spirit seeds. Niezhong stopped and walked into the store. The treasurer. As soon as he entered the store, Niezhong shouted, "My dear, what do you want to buy?" As soon as he entered the store, an old man in his 60s greeted him with a red face. Our store has all kinds of spiritual rice seeds, spiritual medicine seeds, and a variety of rare spiritual plant seeds. Done. The old man handed over a jade slip and said, "This is the complete picture book of the spirit species. It contains the introduction and price of various spirit species. Please read it." Niezhong took the jade slip handed over by the old man. His consciousness sank into it, and he checked it. A long time. Niezhong withdrew his consciousness and frowned. "Master, why are the prices marked with spirit stones in your illustrated book? Can't you use spirit stones to buy them?" "Excuse me, guest," the old man smiled and cupped his hands. "According to the decree of Guanhai Xiancheng, starting from today this month, the whole city will implement a new currency, that is spirit stone coins. If you don't have spirit stone coins, you can go to Chongping Central Bank in the central block in exchange for spirit stones." Hearing this, Niezhong took out a 100 yuan spirit stone coin from the storage bag and said, "Take a look at the shopkeeper. Is it this kind of paper money? See." The old man took the spirit stone coin from Niezhong. I saw him pick up the spirit stone coin, shake it lightly, then carefully look at the pattern on it, and finally took it to his nose and sniffed it, and finally said with a smile, "Yes, this is the currency." Just this note worth 100 spirit stones? Niezhong wondered. Yes, it is worth 100 spirit stones. Can't you take it to Chongping Central Bank to exchange spirit stones? What else do you doubt? Hearing this, Niezhong shook his head and said, "I really don't know what this Guanhai Xianqing is doing. Who knows?" The old man also sighed with emotion. "Look, guest, you want to buy." Niezhong took the spirit stone coins and said with a smile, "Forgive me, shopkeeper, I am a soldier of the coalition army, and I will definitely not be able to buy your spirit seeds for the time being. After 2 years, I will take care of your business after I retire." Hear this. The old man was not angry and said with a smile, "Guest officer, please go well, and welcome to take care of the old business in the future." Good talk, good talk. Niezhong bowed his hands and exited the store. Next, Niezhong visited several shops and found that spirit stone coins could actually be spent, and what was even more strange was that the shops in Guanhai Xianqing did not accept spirit stones. Please forgive me, our Zhang Spirit Talisman store can't really accept spirit stones. You can take the spirit stones to the Chongping Central Bank, exchange them for spirit stone coins, and then go to the store to buy spirit talismans. Shops are running. Among them there are also shops that secretly collect spirit stones, but these shops were quickly caught by the patrolling soldiers and imposed a very high fine. So far, Niezhong rarely sees shops that dare to violate the laws of Guanhai Xiancheng. Overnight, the currency used in this immortal city changed from spirit stones to banknotes in his hand. Thought here. He tossed the spirit stone coin in his hand, making a rustling sound. Really interesting. Niezhong muttered. The Western Defense Zone Coalition Force Station. In a dark dungeon. This dungeon, since its construction, has rarely been used except for occasional soldiers who violated military discipline have been imprisoned. Chun Daoxian walked step by step to a cell inscribed with array patterns. To the soldier next to him. "Open the door." "Yes, Lord Commander." After the soldier bowed and saluted, he quickly opened the cell door. In the cell, a middle-aged cultivator lay on the ground with a pale face, with shackles on his hands and feet, who was not Xia Hong, the former leader of 10,000 soldiers. Okay, don't pretend my finger just shattered your air and didn't hurt your body, you can't die. Hear this. Xia Hong suddenly opened his eyes and roared, Chen Daoxian, you use your public tools for private use, you are despicable and shameless, you will not succeed in recruiting, you will be jealous and you will frame the blame for me. Just wait, the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces will definitely give me justice in this matter. And the Qinyuan sword sect will definitely not let you, a scum, be spared. Xia Hong waved his hands excitedly, and the shackles made a clattering sound under his struggle. I remember that the Sea of Qi in the Dantian was broken, and there is a kind of elixir that seems to be able to repair it. What is it called? Chen Daoxian immediately put on a contemplative expression. Yes, Tianbu Tian pill. The Tianbu Tian pill of the Qinghui Taoist school. Hear this. Xia Hong was immediately hit hard, and then said solemnly, what do you want to say? Actually, I'm very curious. It stands to reason that the conditions for my Chen family to recruit you. Looking at the entire Wangxinghai, there will be no second company that can offer a higher price. You can't be tempted. Chen Daoxian paused. I think you are a proud person for the time being. Even Zifu Dan can't impress you, but I framed you so much in front of everyone yesterday and you didn't even argue. Is it hard to prove your innocence? The oath of the Great Road and the mirror of the heart can all prove your innocence. Oh, by the way, allegiance to my Chen family must also be pledged to the Great Tao. Why are you so afraid of taking the oath of the Great Way? What are you afraid of? Xia Hong? Chen Daoxian looked at Xia Hong, who was trembling all over in the dungeon, and smiled. You wanted to die yesterday, but I didn't expect that I didn't kill you but abolished you. Don't you think it's too late if you want to live after you got away with it, and now you want to die again? Although Xia Hong's Dantian Qi Si was destroyed, he was still a foundation-building cultivator. Only, he found that all over his body, even his consciousness was almost frozen by the person in front of him. This man so strong. Too strong. Xia Hong shivered in his heart. Xia Hong, I'm not wrong about Exensian who fought in the Battle of Zenangwan back then, right? Chen Daoxian slowly crouched down in front of him, looking directly into his eyes. Tell me, how did you come back? Xia Hong's face turned red and he was speechless. Chen Daoxian squeezed a seal in his hand and pressed it directly on the opponent's body, sealing him all over, leaving only one mouth to move. Hey! A penetrating smile appeared on Xia Hong's face. He stared at Chen Daoxian and said with a strange smile, Chen Daoxian, do you think you can live? You all have to die, you all have to die. I'm waiting for you below, I'm waiting for you. Not good. Chen Daoxian's expression changed, and he quickly stretched out his hand to stop it, but a huge force directly bounced his hand away. Looking again, Xia Hong had already died of anger. See this scene. Chen Daoxian's face was ashen. Chapter 186. Looked at Xia Hong who died in front of him. Chen Daoxian felt like there was a stone in his heart. The Battle of Zenangwan, the corpse tied in Guang'an, and the subtle attitude of Qinyuan Jianzong to Zhangzhou over the years. All of this, like a cloud of mist, shrouded Chen Daoxian's heart. This Xia Hong, if his guess is correct, it should be the dark son of the Xianqing Dao League placed in Wangxinghai. In fact, it is not uncommon for major forces to plant spies on each other's territory. Xianqing Dao Alliance can place Anzi in Wangxinghai, and Qinyuan Sword Sect can naturally place Anzi in Xianqing Dao Alliance. It depends on which of the two sides has the better means. But judging from the situation in which the Qinyuan Jianzong family is pressing the opposite two to fight, it is clear that the Qinyuan Jianzong is superior. Chen Daoxian was not worried about this. He just felt that what Xia Hong said before his death seemed to have a point. All to die. Chen Daoxian raised his head. Is he referring to the corpse tied in Guang'an? Shook his head. Chen Daoxian, who did not know what he was referring to, threw the distracting thoughts out of his mind. Now he has too little information to analyze anything at all. But one thing is certain. If you want to deal with all this, you can only strengthen your own strength. Until one day in the future, the Chen family will develop to the point where it can be comparable to or even stronger than Qinyuan Jianzong. These conspiracies are all vulnerable in the face of absolute strength. Think of this. Chen Daoxian silently put away the lavender shadow stone in his hand and walked out of the cell. 1,000 soldiers died in the coalition forces in the Western Defense Area. According to the regulations, he must report it. And what he held in his hand was absolute proof that Xia Hong was a spy. With this evidence in hand, no matter what he said, Chen Daoxian, as the commander of the coalition army, did not have any faults but made contributions. It's just that Xia Hong died too early. There are still too many things to explain. But if you think about it carefully, since the Xianqing Dao League dared to install an Anzi in Wangxinghai, how could it not leave behind? Even if Xia Hong is sent to Qinyuan Jianzong, it is estimated that it will be difficult to extract any valuable information. Get out of the dungeon. Chen Daoxian glanced at the bright sunshine in the sky, and his mood gradually eased. Right now, the most important thing for the Chen family is to ensure the stable operation of Guanhai Xiancheng. He is almost eager to issue spirit stone coins, which will definitely cause chaos to the development of Guanhai Xiancheng in a short period of time. But Chen Daoxian believed. As long as the monks who reside in Guanhai Xiancheng are convinced that the spirit stone coins can actually be exchanged for spirit stones, there will be no major problems in its circulation in Guanhai Xiancheng. In the final analysis, the spirit stone coins are only equivalent to the silver notes of the ancient past. Is still fundamentally different from modern money that uses credit as collateral. In order to ensure the stable operation of Guanhai Xiancheng, in addition to active business and trade, there is another important factor, which is the protection of force. This point, the Chen family is very lacking. At present, the military protection of Guanhai Xiancheng completely depends on the strength of the Western Defense Zone coalition forces and Chen Daoxuan's strength comparable to the cultivator of Zifu. The other Chen family cultivators were of no use here. What Chen Daoxian needs to do next is to enhance the strength of the other cultivators of the Chen family. If it weren't for the Hongming Enlightenment Classic breaking through the second layer, it would have the new function of preaching. Chen Daoxian intends to strengthen the hard power of the Chen family little by little in 10 years, or even 100 years. But now there is a preaching function. He believes that this time will be shortened more than tenfold, because he himself is a typical example. Shuanghu Island. Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian and said with a smile, I originally thought that Daochu would build a foundation a year earlier than you, but I didn't expect you two to reach the threshold of foundation building at the same time. Heard this. Chen Daolian raised her head slightly, her pretty face filled with an unstoppable smile. Chen Daochu said annoyed, Young patriarch, I was dragged down by the heavy research and development tasks in the laboratory. You just let me finish the paper money, and now you let me transform the melting furnace and centrifugal wall breaker. And what kind of spirit is there? Pressing device, laying the aura network of Shuanghu Island. Chen Daochu's mouth kept ranting like a laser gun. Hearing Chen Daoxian shaking his head, he smiled and said, It's hard work for those who are capable. You did a good job with that banknote last time. Not only is the anti-counterfeiting ability first-rate, but it is also easy to manufacture. The most important thing is that you even invented the matching currency detector. Out. But you gave me too many tasks all at once. Didn't you say that you set up the Magical Instrument Research Institute to study high-level spirit armor and war instruments? Chen Daochu was complaining and curious. Yes, but there is no need for research at this time. Chen Daoxian paused. In the jade slips of the Qianyuan Sword Sex War Exploits Exchange, there is a second-order high-grade spirit armor inheritance for exchange. If you can spend money, let's buy it first. If you can't spend money, let's study it ourselves. Heard this. Chen Daochu nodded clearly. As one of the top executives of the Chen family, he is very aware of how terrifying the family's ability to make money is now. The current financial resources of the Chen family mainly come from three parts. The first is naturally the transaction with the East Defense Zone, which can also be called the military supply trade. The second is the elixir shop and the magic weapon shop opened in the immortal city of Guang'an and the immortal city of Lingri. Although the profit of this part is not as huge as the military trade, it is worse than the long run. The third part is the benefits of Guanhai Xiancheng. The interests of Guanhai Xiancheng can be divided into two parts. One part is the profit from the family's property, and the other part is the taxation of other businesses. Although the benefits generated by Guanhai Xiancheng are not comparable to the military supplies trade, it also exceeds the profits brought by the Chan family's industries in Guangganfu Xiancheng and Lingri Xiancheng. In the future, with the continuous growth of Guanhai Xiancheng, this Xiancheng will become the most important basic business and foreign trade window of the Chan family. This is also the reason why Chen Daoxian was so thoughtful and wanted to change his currency for trading. It seems unnecessary to implement spirit stone coins now. But just because the fairy city is small, the resistance is smaller and the supervision is better. Otherwise, wait until Guanhai Xiancheng really develops to the point where it is comparable to Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng or even bigger. If the currency is changed at that time, the impact and supervision difficulty will be much greater. People without thought he must worry about. If Chen Daoxian is an ordinary Chen clan member, of course he doesn't need to think about it in the long run. He only needs to concentrate on improving his own strength. But he is the patriarch of the Chan clan, and his decision is related to the future development of the family. He had to make early plans for the long-term development of the family. I didn't expect that, in a blink of an eye, the two of you are going to build foundations. Time flies really fast. Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian and said with emotion, "Yes." Chen Daolian nodded. "Now think about the days we spent in the courtyard of the Chitongshen cave mansion. It's like a dream." "Hey." Chen Daochu smirked. "In the future it will get better and better," Chen Daoxian said with a smile. "What needs to be paid attention to in foundation building? I have also explained what should be explained. You not only have foundation building Dan but also the second grade good luck Balian. As long as you don't mess around, there will be no problem in building the foundation. As for the spiritual veins of foundation building, go to Guanhai Xiancheng. I will use my Lingfu in Guanhai Xiancheng as a foundation for the two of you. The spiritual vein of the family also has a second order, or I will build the foundation in the spiritual vein of the family." Chen Daolian hesitated. "No, let me go to the family's spiritual veins to build the foundation, and let Dao Lian go to watch the Haixian city. I am afraid that she is not serious in her usual practice, and the foundation will have an accident. Who do you say is not serious about cultivation?" Chen Daolian glared with apricot eyes. "Okay, don't argue. Are you breaking through the purple mansion? A third-order spiritual vein is not enough for your two qi cultivators to build a foundation?" Chen Daoxian waved his hand. "Listen to me, go to Guanhai Xiancheng, and I will protect the law for you personally," heard the words. Chen Daolian and Chen Daochu looked at each other and said in unison, "Yes, young patriarch." The next day, Chen Daolian and Chen Daochu are ready to go to Guanhai Xiancheng with Chen Daoxian. Unexpectedly, Chen Xianhe rushed over. Seeing Chen Xianhe, everyone saluted. "Uncle 13. Old patriarch." Chen Xianhe nodded with a smile, and then said angrily, "You two little guys are finally going to build a foundation. If Chen Daolin didn't tell me about such a big thing, I would have been kept in the dark by you guys." "Cough, Uncle 13, this is not a big deal. My Chen family has a second and third foundation building cultivator. Isn't this a big deal?" Chen Xianhe seemed to point. "I see that everything has been going well for you recently. You must have gotten carried away." Seeing that Chen Daoxian was reprimanded by the old patriarch, Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian covered their mouths and wanted to laugh but didn't dare to laugh. What Uncle 13 taught is. Chen Daoxian only smiled bitterly when he saw this. Several people finished speaking. Chen Daoxian carried the three of Chen Xianhe with a flying sword and came to Guanhai Xiancheng together. Guanhai Xiancheng's forbidden air formation is invalid for monks above the foundation stage, which is quite similar to Lingdai Xiancheng. Flew all the way to Chen Daoxuan's Lingfu located in Guanhai Xiancheng. Lowers the light. Chen Daoxian pointed to the two main spiritual eyes in the Lingfu and said, "The two of you are building the foundation, and those two spiritual eyes are respectively. I have set up sound insulation and protective formations for the two spiritual eyes, plus I am protecting the magic outside. No one will disturb the process of building the foundation. You can rest assured to build the foundation." "Yes, young patriarch." Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian bowed their hands gratefully after hearing this. Watch Chen Daolian and Chen Daochu enter the secret room to retreat and build the foundation. Chen Daoxian turned around, looked at Chen Xian and said, "Uncle 13, Is there anything you want to tell me? Chen Daoxian is so sensitive. From the attitude of Chen Xianhe just now, it can be seen that he has nothing to say. Chen Xianhe looked at Chen Daoxian with deep meaning on his face and said, I heard that you got a new kind of talisman in Guanhai Xianqing to replace the transaction of Lingshi and Xianqing? That's true. Chen Daoxian nodded. Daoxian, Chen Xianhe warned, this kind of talisman can only be used inside Guanhai Xianqing, and must not be used outside, not even in Guang'an Prefecture. After finished speaking, he stared at him intently. My Chen family is still too weak. I have nothing to rely on except you. I see, Uncle 13. Chen Daoxian nodded heavily. Chapter 187. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Watch Haixian City. Chen Daoxuan's spiritual residence. Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian almost walked out of the retreat room one after the other. I saw the two again. They were already a monk in the early stage of foundation building. See this scene. Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian, who had been waiting outside for 3 days, quickly got up from the stone bench and greeted them. Daochu Daolian, you have become? Chen Xianhe said excitedly. Patriarch, young patriarch, we succeeded. The two looked at each other, then looked at Chen Daoxian and Chen Xianhe, smiled and nodded. Okay. Although Chen Daoxian knew that there would be no problem for the two to build the foundation, but seeing that the two of them completed in one go, and did not encounter any accidents on the way to the foundation, I was still relieved. After all, the last time he built the foundation was an accident, and it took a full month to build the foundation successfully. Of course, he has been building foundations for a long time, and his strength after foundation building is far beyond what ordinary foundation building cultivators can match. Daoxian, now my Chen family finally has 2 more Taoist cultivators who can be independent. Congratulations on this matter. Yes, Chen Daoxian nodded with a smile, then thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, let's just celebrate. Now Guang'an Prefecture is in the midst of a war with the Lianhua Island Corps Group, so it's not appropriate to celebrate with great fanfare. Besides, my Chen family is not what it used to be. There are 2 more foundation building cultivators, so there is nothing to celebrate. We can just be happy in private. Said, looked at Chen Daochu and Chen Daolian, and said with a smile, I'm going to wrong you too. Chen Daochu bared his teeth, shook his head and said, don't be wronged. Isn't this what you often say, young patriarch, to make a fortune in silence? Chen Daoxian nodded and said with deep eyes, it's good if you can understand. From now on, it's not just the 2 of you but the rest of the people, especially the people of the Fu family, who will build the foundation, and even break through the Z Palace in the future, must strictly keep secrets. A powerful family must have hidden strength in addition to its apparent strength. Perhaps these hidden strengths can help our Chen family survive disasters in the future. Heard the words. Chen Daoxian and Chen Daolian said in unison, remember the teachings of the young patriarch. Chen Xianhe saw this scene and knew that Chen Daoxian had listened to his advice. For the current Chen family, silently developing and accumulating strength is the top priority. The number of cultivators of the Taoist generation is too small, and when the Fuzi generation really grows up, the Chen family can truly be considered the 3rd largest family in Guang'an Prefecture. Otherwise, the 3rd largest family in Guang'an Mansion, supported by Chen Daoxian alone, would not live up to its name. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, 3 years have passed. In the past 3 years, thanks to the Chen family's support and supplementation of the frontline medicinal herbs and instruments in the rear, the East Defense Zone has been victorious in the war against the Lianhua Island Corps Group, has repressed the opponent back to the main island of the Lotus Archipelago, which is the corpse refining ground that Chen Daoxian and Zhou Mubai explored. However, the 3rd Order E Meridian has become a 4th Order E Meridian, after years of management by Brother Sun Fu. It is densely covered with various formations, and the Yin suffocation is permeating. Even if the ordinary cultivator in the Qi refining stage takes the Pashadan, he cannot resist the attack of this thick Yin and suffocation. Therefore, Zhou Mubai had no choice but to blockade the island. The direction of his gap is exactly the direction of Cangzhou Xianqing. Zhou Mubai's plan is very simple. Let the corpses of Lotus Island go to scourge Cangzhou Xianqing. The two sides have been fighting for so long. Although the corpse group on Lotus Island has been wiped out by millions, the remaining number is probably as many as nearly 10 million. Such a huge group of corpses plus the fourth order in veins. Even if Guang'an Prefecture can completely wipe out this corpse tide, the monks in the entire Guang'an Prefecture would have to lose hundreds of thousands or more. After all, fighting on the main island of Lotus Island is no better than fighting on various Qingguan islands. There is the home field of the corpse group. If the cultivator goes there to fight, the true energy in the body will be greatly suppressed. One side's strength is damaged and the other side's strength is increased. This reduction increases, and the strength gap between cultivators and ordinary zombies in the qi refining period will be shortened in an instant, and it will be severely damaged by then. Zhou Mubai was of course unwilling to suffer this kind of loss, even if the loss was not entirely to his Zhou family, but mostly to lose cultivators in Guang'an House. But these scattered repairs are the basic plan of the Guang'an House family, and they are also very important to the Zhou family. Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng. Zhou's residence. A ray of light streaked across the sky. As the light descends, the figure of a person appears. I saw a handsome cultivator wearing a white Taoist robe, a jade crown, and a handsome face walking towards a hall where the Zhou family resided. Inside the main hall, a red-haired cultivator was cultivating. His consciousness moved slightly, and Zhang Yu opened his eyes when he saw the person coming. Immediately got up and walked out of the hall, and greeted the person who came. 3 years have passed. Chen Daoxuan's appearance has not changed at all compared to 3 years ago. The only thing that has changed is his cultivation, which has just broken through from the first floor of the foundation building to the third floor of the foundation building. Saw the change in Chen Daoxuan's cultivation. Zhang Yu raised his fiery red brows slightly and said with a smile, I haven't seen you for a long time, and Dao Yuchan has made great progress in his cultivation. Senior Zhang is too famous. Chen Daoxian cupped his hands and said straight to the point, I'm here this time for the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. It has already been prepared for fellow Daoist Chen. Please come with me. Hearing the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda, Zhang Ye's face became serious. Speaking of which, the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda is the most valuable instrument that the Chen family exchanged for the Qianyuan sword sect with their military exploits. 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda is a 4th order magic weapon, but due to its special function and expensive price, it can almost be compared to a 5th order magic tool. In order to buy this magic weapon, the Qin family almost used up all the military exploits accumulated in the past few years. To know, as the production capacity of the Chunjia Spirit Medicine Factory and the Magical Instrument Factory increased step by step, the merits earned by the Chen family on the front line every month are increasing visibly to the naked eye. Over the past 3 years, the Chen family has earned a total of no less than 1 million in the front line. On the merits of war in the entire Guang'an Prefecture, it is only less than the Zhou family who both fought on the front line and provided various resources in the rear. 1 million great merits converted into spirit stones is as many as 100 million spirit stones. Can be imagined how much wealth the Chen family has accumulated in the arms trade in recent years. It is said that making money from war is the fastest way to accumulate wealth. After this war between Guang'an Prefecture and the corpse group on Lotus Island, Chen Daoxian finally felt a little bit. Just a small fight of this scale between Guang'an Prefecture and the Lianhua Island corpse tide. Let the Chen family eat belly fat. The war between Wan Xinghai and Izumo will be such a vast market for all kinds of medicinal herbs and instruments consumed. Chen Daoxian is simply unimaginable. Of course, although the Chen family is greedy for the profits at present, they cannot find a way to intervene in it. After all, the Chen family has a shallow foundation and can still be famous in Guang'an Prefecture. But in front of a major sect like Qianyuan Jianzong, it is estimated that others do not even know who the Chen family is in Guang'an Prefecture. In the face of such a vast market, Chen Daoxian can only be envious. Followed behind Zhang Su, and the two entered the hall. I saw a small blue tower in the center of the main hall, quietly sealed in a forbidden place. Chen Daoxian stepped forward in 3 or 2 steps, looked at the small tower suspended in mid-air, and said excitedly, This is the famous 9 ruins Linglongta used by major families to train their descendants. Exactly. Zhang Su stroked his red beard and smiled. This is the tower, finished. Zhang Su waved his hand, and the restriction on the periphery of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda was lifted by Zhang Su. The blue pagoda lost its restraint and flew directly towards Zhang Su. Took over the Linglong Tower of the 9 ruins, and Zhang Su handed it over to Chen Daoxian. Chen Dao, you please take a look, took over the small blue tower from Zhang Su. Chen Daoxian's face was full of curiosity. While looking at the tower body, he said, this pagoda's use of meson space pattern is really exquisite, and the person who refined this pagoda must be a great master of refining. Chen Daoxian, who has now touched the realm of the third-order refiner, can see the extraordinariness of this tower at a glance. Indeed so. Zhang Su nodded. Okay, now the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda has also been delivered to Daoyuchan. The transportation fee you prepaid to me, and the accumulated military exploits will all be written off. It should be. Chen Daoxian handed over again and again. Let Senior Zhang be affected. Zhang Su heard the words, smiled and shook his head. It's all about the responsibility in terms of the entire Guang'an prefecture. Your Chen family is the second family to own this pagoda. It's not simple. After finished speaking, he looked at Chen Daoxian with eyes full of meaning. It was a fluke. If it wasn't for the battle against the corpse group on Lotus Island this time, it would be my Chen family's turn to make such a big fortune. Chen Daoxian smiled and cupped his hands, his face full of humility. So war is the best way for the small family and our loose cultivators to rise. Zhang Su sighed with emotion. Senior Zhang is very true. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands. Since that's the case, I won't disturb Senior Zhang Qingxiu and leave. Slow walk without sending. Zhang Su nodded, watched Chen Daoxian leave and muttered. Chen family Chen Daoxian, I don't know whether you can become a member of my generation in the future. Along the way, Chen Daoxian wanted to put this small cyan tower in the storage bag, but found that he didn't put it in at all. Sure enough, the 2 magical instruments that use the meson space pattern will conflict with each other, and are not compatible at all. Chen Daoxian smiled and shook his head. If not, then using the storage bag to store the storage bag, wouldn't it be possible to have infinite nesting of dolls and have infinite space, which is obviously impossible? Chen Daoxian was promoted to the 3rd floor of the foundation building. The real essence of Dantian Qi Si has completely reached the limit state real essence described in Qinyuan Sword Classic. In other words, in the foundation establishment stage, no matter how Chen Daoxian cultivated, the strength of his true essence could no longer be improved to any extent. The only thing he can improve is the amount of real essence. Actually, owning the 2nd-grade fortune Balian, the natal instrument, Chen Daoxian does not lack the amount of real essence. Therefore, for a long time in the future, if he wants to improve his strength, he can only work on the realm of Kendo, secret arts and foreign objects. Needless to say about the realm of Kendo, Chen Daoxian has devoted most of his epiphany opportunities in the past 3 years to the realm of Kendo. Now his Kendo realm has been elevated to a level where the double tangible sword intent is quite profound. The dim starlight in the original Dantian Qi Si has also become extraordinarily bright, like a small star. When this star is completely condensed and formed, Chen Daoxian's Kendo realm will step into the 3rd realm, and the sword will transform into a star. In addition to the realm of Kendo, Chen Daoxian also cultivated a special secret technique to strengthen the defense of the physical body, called the Vajra body, which can also be considered to make up for the weakness of his own defense. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.